Good evening and welcome to the June 27th City Council Roundtable. I am Mayor Ross and tonight's roundtable is being brought to you live using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. Tonight's recording will be posted on the city's YouTube channel. Welcome and thank you for joining us. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Catherine Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Ethan Benson.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Holloway.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Lassay.
Here.
Councilmember Kara Christensen. Here. Councilmember Mayhew is not present. And Councilmember Joe Johnson is not present. And Councilmember Rob Watton requested an excused absence.
Have we heard anything from Councilmember Mayhew or Johnson?
We have not heard anything from them, and per the rules of procedure, they may be excused from attending the city council meeting by contacting the mayor prior to the meeting and stating the reason for their inability to attend. And if unable to contact the mayor, then they should contact the city clerk, and we have heard from neither one of them. So,
Well, minor point, the excusing of attendance is a council action. Motion second.
I mean, you have approved the rules of procedure, and they're located in the council rules of procedure. You can vote on Councilmember Watton.
Well, this is not the council meeting, this is a roundtable. So is it necessary to do that at this time? Or is it when we start the council meeting at 7 o'clock?
I'll turn to the city clerk.
I don't think your rules of procedure are clear on that.
So I choose not to argue the rules of procedure. So the practice has been for motion second and vote on excusal of council members not present. At that stage, I make a motion to excuse the three council members not present. May I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So they are Councilor Watton, Councilor Johnson, Councilor Mayhew are excused for the round table. So we now move to our first item on the special business, which is approve the agenda. Council may have a motion to approve the roundtable agenda.
So move. Second.
There's a motion by Councilor Holloway and a second by Councilor Lassay. Any discussion? Councilor Lassay?
Are we approving just the roundtable agenda, correct?
Just roundtable agenda. Right. See no discussion? All those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion passes. The first item on the agenda is city council priorities discussion. So at our March 26th retreat, city council identified several priorities and expressed a desire to formalize the list of city council priorities. Council had a follow-up discussion at April 25th roundtable meeting, added some additional items and discussed priorities further on May 9th. So council tonight, we will continue our deliberations on the city council priorities. And city clerk Estrada, did you receive any input from council members, or has the priority list changed?
We received one email from Councilmember Benson, and I forwarded that to the finance director. Conclusion.
Finance director, Ferguson, has that been included, or should we have just a discussion around it?
Thank you, Mayor. That specific statement that Councilmember Benson has provided could be included in tonight's discussion. I can go through where it may be placed in the priorities under that particular priority.
So,
Councilor Holly?
I guess a request that we level set what is the current, where we are currently, And then let's have council under Johnson's submittal as potential motion to revise.
Councilor Benson.
What?
Sure, sorry.
What's that?
Your input, Councilor Benson.
Yeah.
Revise what I said.
So this has not changed since the May 9th, the document you see in your packet. So if you recall the priorities, we had encouraged economic vibrancy, bolster neighborhood, usability, invest in transportation infrastructure, enhance quality of life, assure a safe community, and ensure fiscal transparency and operational stability. And then we have goals and objectives that we're tying to each of the priorities, and then we're adding action items. I think the first one was assure. Councilor Vincent, do you want to talk to your priorities that you had submitted?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry. All set. There we go. Yeah, under Assure Safe Community, I was asking that we add something that reads fully fund and fully staff our police and fire departments. And under financial transparency and operational stability, I was asking that we would add fully staff the city administration and operate within the city's means with present realistic and present realistic alternatives for funding and savings to residents. And I didn't realize you were taking that right now, or I would have read slower.
Mayor, well, I just wanted to provide the council with what we were planning on doing here was to capture what the council was going to deliberate on. There's an opportunity then to wordsmith that. And so that is what I'm doing here is serving in that role. I am going to draw your attention to the priority for ensuring fiscal transparency and operational stability, which Councilmember Benson just spoke to. There is a current proposed action item. And you'll see that here, maintain current levels of staff. That might be a place that could be expanded in the wording for fully staffing, similar to the public safety action item for police and fire staff, but it would be here where you spoke to fully staffing administrative departments.
And you were feeling that that what I was asking for would fit under maintain current levels of services?
It could, it also could go under improve the organizational staffing capacity. That was a statement about staffing that was put in there, but we could wordsmith this.
Yeah, I think I would wordsmith that one, at least for what I was going for in my statement, because I'm not necessarily, I'm agnostic on the statement that we should maintain current levels of services. My personal feeling is that if that's what the residents of Snoqualmie want, then we need to figure out how they want to go about doing that. But more important is that, and to me, is that we operate within our means. And that's going to involve presenting choices to the residents. If that makes sense. I don't think you and I are going to decide this right now. It'll probably take at least one more meeting. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Holly?
I know what you're saying, but do these statements are on two different sides of the equation in my head. I would propose that we take, maintain current level of services and put that under assure the safety community. That in my head, at least, it represents some priority to those community safety resources. Where there may be, heaven forbid, if a depression comes, there may be choices we have to make on levels of service in this area, and public safety would have a higher priority on me to keep the current level. Again, level of service in this case meaning so many police officers per capita, firefighters per capita, along those lines. Where the other side of the equation you're talking about is make sure that we support that in a budget wise. And I agree that should go down in here in ensure transferring operational safety, but it comes from the other side, not just.
Yeah.
What's our target and how are we gonna fund it?
Yeah, my personal, position on, oh, I'm sorry. Chair, am I recognized? Sorry. My personal feeling is that I don't want to maintain current levels with public safety, with police and fire. Those need to be increased because right now they're operating, in my opinion, at a deficit. They're not fully staffed. And so those levels need to come up. But if we're talking about all the services in Snoqualmie, then I don't have a strong opinion on whether those levels need to stay at any particular level, except that we need to be able to fund them.
Counselor Hall.
Again, level of service is kind of a target metric we go for because we don't do police officers per capita. We do at least 3 officers on a shift, 24 hours a day. What do you need to do that for both us and North Bend? That's the level of service. Now, the fact that we're spreading our officers pretty thin to make that happen, that's a staffing level issue. And yes, we should, maybe that goes under public safety of make efforts to recruit and retain additional staff to meet level of service.
Reduce 24-hour shifts, et cetera.
Because it's measurements of levels of service. And so for meeting those measures, like response time, for instance, 3 minutes. And you have a staff of 10, and it's 3 minutes, and the staff of 15. You're still meeting the levels of service, that where staffing is stretched.
Right. Thank you for that. That's helpful.
Was there a third item?
Was that clear as mud for you?
Well, what I've put up on the screen is a possible statement, is to maintain appropriate levels of service by fully staffing police and fire departments. You change the word appropriate to adequate. If there's a measurement that you want to include in that statement, that also would be helpful.
I think we're looking for optimal levels.
I guess I'd rather separate the bullets as how do we have it down there? Maintain current level of service. Second bullet is retain and recruit to support level of service targets. Again, I view level of service as a target statement. The other one is performance to target. How are we doing? And that just be my take on the definition of level of service and other things.
Would you repeat that second statement for me?
Retain and recruit. You can take retain and recruit public safety staff to perform to level of service. Maybe a qualifier in there. We're performing now to the level of service, but it's really stressing staff the way we're doing it. So maybe adequately perform to level of service.
All right, so I've got a statement, proposed statement here, maintain optimal levels of service by fully staffing police and fire departments by retaining and recruiting to perform to adequate levels of service. We'll need to do some wordsmithing.
Yeah, I moved to take optimal out, just maintain the little service. I don't. I want to do something for optimal, I don't know what to do to satisfy that word, but
It's fun to wordsmith, right?
Yeah. Your comments on that particular statement,
what you want.
Councilor.
Oh, yeah. Everything that I wanted.
Councilor Livingston.
I was just gonna say that if you can define optimal by what you've already got in the statement, you probably don't need to have the word optimal.
Right.
So stick with current.
So if you're saying maintain levels of service, like staffing, police and fire departments. There's a lot of buys in there, retaining and recruiting, through, there you go, retaining and recruiting to perform adequate levels of service. Adequate, how do you define adequate as well? You could use acceptable, you could use. I don't know, that's a tough one, because they're loaded words.
Right,
Wow.
right. Optimal drive, in my head, drives me to a study of what is the appropriate level of services, X number of police officers, where I think we've done that. So if we have our level, it's again, 3 officers, 24 hours, 37 days a week. With appropriate management above. To your other, and you're right, we may need to work on the word adequate, and we're looking at that we're working the balance. I don't want to burn out the police force just because we're working 12 hours a day and 7 days a week. Inappropriate. And maybe it's a sustainable staffing level. Maybe because of the level of service.
I don't know, my staff would say sustainable is like 22 hours a week.
Maybe ideal or something like that.
They would say ideal is 15 hours a week. This isn't being recorded.
It is.
I'll throw out there, maybe a defined level of service, as the council has set definitions of levels of service, number of officers, so the council define levels.
My recollection is.
Councilor Howland.
My recollection is, again, that we had set level of services both for us more than, I believe, Chief, can correct me where I go wrong, is contractually obligated. But we've set level of service, something along the lines of 3 officers plus management, 7 by 24.
I think an appropriate word, desired level of service.
Oh, no, the question was, have we set what our expectations of level of service are?
Yeah, we have minimum standard of 3 officers and 2 supervisors.
So yes, we do have statements in place of what our expected level of service are. For police, I don't see the chief. I think he's gone. But I believe we have the same thing for fire.
Councilor Christensen.
I was just gonna comment that I didn't actually like the use of the word sustainable with reference to, the number of staff we have, because I'm also worried about the police being overused and, just tired. Having full solutions and on. I want to make sure that that is really important, that there are enough folks on staff that are able to handle that.
And that's
Councilor Howland.
kind of why I suggested that we're, if I were the Grinch or Pat's competitor, I would say we're there. I've achieved it. Well, no, not really balancing the quality of life for our staff and everything else. The sustainable is.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'll repeat what we've got so far. Okay. Maintain levels of service by staffing police and fire departments through retaining and recruiting to perform to desired and sustainable levels of service.
Okay, so moving on then. So we just talked about one of Councilor Vinson's comments. Does somebody else have something she'd like to interject on this listing, or we can do it through his list? Councilor Christensen.
So one of mine was to cultivate an environmentally conscious community. One of the things that I wanted to look at, and it's not as near term right now, because I know that we're looking currently at the budget and capital improvement project, but as we go forward and look at our strategic planning for the city, one of the things I'd like to do is have staff go through and eventually talk about making sure that our long-term planning includes climate resiliency and kind of looking through it with that kind of a lens. I've spoken with the folks that were in Redmond, and they've kind of gone through and updated their comprehensive plan kind of chapter by chapter to incorporate environmental impacts and taking care of the green space they have right now and improving quality of the green space they have. And that's something that I'd like to see going forward. Again, I know we're not working on it right now, but it's my understanding that once we have a little bit more staffing with the city and some positions filled, that they'll be looking more into that over the next 12 months. So I'd love to see something on there that's focused on the environmentally friendly aspect of it.
Great, so throughout the comprehensive plan, yeah.
And I know different cities have kind of focused on doing it in different ways. Redmond went through and they went chapter by chapter basically and tried to incorporate the environmental aspects. I think some of the other local cities have gone ahead and just added like just a specific chapter kind of addressing environmental impacts and resiliency. Kind of incorporating the aspects of 10 engineering and hospitals, which ultimately end up being passed.
I know there are members of P4C, which is, looking at all the types of projects and you're planning through environmental things.
And one of the other things that I'd love to see on that as well is kind of if we could get, and this is kind of really specific, but if we could, as a city, kind of get the word out on all the wonderful things that we're doing, kind of update the website that way as well. Even doing things like blasts or let folks know about the opportunities they have with the green space and what the city's doing, what they can do, I think would be helpful as well.
Mayor, I've added the statement to reflect Councilmember Christensen's comments. We'll take a look at that and see if there is something that meets what you're proposing. I would also going to add efforts to communicate what the city is doing as well with regards to.
That's what I'm saying.
Should we move on? Are we moving on to another item? If that is or we want to continue to talk about that one?
There's some other comments we can move on to make them.
No, you're just fine. I'm not going to get more into that one. That's a hit of coals. I'm not walking across. I'm just trying to understand two of the items actually were almost where it needed to be. The collaborate with the Washtenaw to enhance regional connectivity. And then further down, we've got the one more down there. Provide multimodal mobility options for connecting neighborhoods and recreational amenities. What is the difference there? If our action items are guide Metro on equity for Snoqualmie commuters, where's the we're talking multimodal mobility, and my understanding of multimodal is bus, train, trolley, other options.
Street bike trails as well.
Okay.
like to think we're one of the unique cities in the country for providing those sort of amenities in our city.
Well, I'd like to think that.
I'd like to think that.
Cool.
So what are you thinking that we're providing right
Well,
now?
I'm just trying to understand what sort of action item can go with that. Because it's the one that we don't have. It's one of those that we don't have an action item.
So do you want to build more bike lanes? Do you want to do more trails? And then we're looking at another trail right now, looking on that. Transit, I'm already on a couple committees trying to get more transit to the city.
So that's why I'm struggling with how do we add one that's similar to, for transit. Just trying to figure out how that one. I think that I'm comfortable with the goals and the objectives. It's the action I want now. I'm sure we'll talk.
Councilor Christensen.
It might be helpful in addition to, I guess, if we're going to expand the options right now, but also just to set up something that makes it easy for residents and people that are from the community to know how many great options we have. Maybe do it in a more visible way so that folks can see these are the bike trails that you can take around, or these are the options, just so that something's more readily available. Really like the idea of what they put in downtown, for example, with the I don't know exactly what they call it, the scannable barcodes basically that can give you additional information that way, just clean on your phone. Anything like that that provides more user interface so that it's really easy for people to figure out what their options are if they want to perform. And we may already have that.
I'm not sure. I know there's an app coming out for tourism, with the chamber and that true about bike trails like that. Maybe there's, maybe connect to it through there. So. Councilor Holland?
So in the fear of overloading this, we're point solutioning, do we really just want to look at the development of the transportation, like intermodal transportation plan to include these other elements, but again, my fear is I'm overloaded because I've just now made a document that will also work with you and probably some analysis. But I think in the long run, it's better than, the point solutions that may or may not come to an integrated solution. So, if we develop a city intermodal transportation plan to include modes of transportation, connectivity to regional resources, and education to the community. Like that, I don't know, et cetera, for the working transportation.
Sounds like a great item for the Parks and Public Works Department. And committee. That's probably wrong.
Probably
It's probably
it's a bunch.
It's a blend of everything.
But I do want to separate it out from the transportation infrastructure. We should work together. This should not supplant that. There's other connections that we shouldn't mess with. Chair, if I may.
Councilor Holland?
In the same vein, you know, popular. Under retail development, I view those as elements or actions under a plan. I think more appropriately though, we should look at the development of a generation of a retail development plan to include these kinds of actions, but it may include more. I'm not sure how having an identity and having a brochure is necessarily going to drive economic development. We really do need to look at what are our opportunities for economic development? How do we recruit the appropriate businesses into those opportunities we have? How do we do that engagement with them? I think all of them. make it where I just made more work. Which we don't have now to do.
That's why.
Sure.
That's why we developed this list, so that we can go and determine how to prioritize those lists even further and know what we have.
Councilor Vincent?
Yeah, I was saying if we're encouraging economic vibrancy and attracting new businesses, I think that's great. We have a lot of businesses in Snoqualmie that it might also be good to help be vibrant. So some sort of, any opportunities we have to help our existing businesses, I think needs to be included under this priority. But I don't know that, well, strengthen the city's employment base, I think, is definitely something in there. And I'm gonna shut up now because continue efforts for pandemic recovery is also in there. But I feel like maybe if there was something under our goals and objectives that was clearly targeted toward supporting our existing businesses, that would make sense under this priority.
Mayor, if that kind of plan is typically called a BRE, Business Recruitment Retention Plan. So it speaks to retention of existing businesses, and then of course the recruitment of businesses, those new businesses to come in. And so those are sometimes.
Andy Love.
Yes, they're two separate plans, yes, and providing those resources for local businesses that are currently here, but also the resources for someone looking to bring their business here, make that strong, make that easy to find information that they need in order to vet whether or not they want to come to the city.
So then our best recruitment for new businesses is showing them how well our existing businesses are doing, because we take such good care of our existing businesses.
That is part of it, yeah. Data helps for folks who want to bring their business to them.
I think it also, the investment in the community that we currently make, such as updating infrastructure and, and holding events and having the banners, and everything we're doing also helps draw businesses, but also retain them. Do you want to put the BRNE?
Yes, I've added that into the action item. Wordsmithing them.
Since we have to create and promote a brand identity campaign, would that also be more of a tourism or marketing plan instead of the specific brand identity? I think that would be part of the marketing plan, for instance. Leave that there and add tourism and marketing.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that one of the things that was a stumbling block when we were trying to develop a tourism plan was defining what tourism was. And it got jumbled in with people visiting, is it businesses attracting, is it activities, is it any number of other items. So it got quite hard to define what tourism plan was because we couldn't really define tourism. And that's what I'm trying to just encourage everyone not to get caught up in Same thing, marketing plan, the same thing. So it's so catch-all that it's hard to define what if you're saying, let's do a marketing plan for what? Well, for everything. Well, then we'll be here, we'll be here for a long time. Same thing with tourism that kind of got us into this discussion of how we define what it is. And we all said, oh, let's bring more people into the city so that the businesses can do well and increase our revenue towards tax base and do all those sorts of things. But it's so vague that it doesn't get us there. So that, I'm just trying to share that experience because we've spent 6 months getting wrapped around that idea of what is tourism. So I encourage the council to not try to think of it as a tourism plan, but I think I like the business recruitment and retention seems to be more focused and would accomplish some of that as well.
Okay.
So council members, we have received a request from somebody participating via Zoom. If everyone could please lean in and use their microphones. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Put drop it on the floor.
So what's next? What's next on your list?
Can we, well, being a myopic engineer, I go to the top off. So continue efforts for pandemic relief. I view that bullet there, distribute percentage of ARPA fund for community stakeholders and kind of representing the activity. We'll talk a little bit later. Would propose a second bullet, says develop actions for remaining ARPA funds for economic development, revenue increase, expenses decrease, and staff retention recruitment. I think that it covers the water, how we may focus those things on.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Sure. The develop actions for the remaining ARPA funds for economic development. Make it city revenue increases, expenses decreases, and staff recruitment and retention.
Please note that Councilmember Johnson has just joined us.
Oh, and it's a party. Like it's virtual, held virtually. Okay. The virtual party. On the premise.
Okay. Councilor Christensen,
As a question, is he able to see the spreadsheet?
you can share. Yeah, thank you.
No, that's one, Chair.
Yes, Councilor Hall.
Under support housing development and ensure zoning standard is that leaves me wanting. But I think this may be also at least something for us to work with staff to develop possible options to address affordable housing, and based on that, action plans to go pursue. Make that sound better than I said, but something along those lines.
And so if it includes zoning standards. then that-
Yeah, if you want to do ADUs and things like that, we'll have to, those have to be included in zoning standards.
Right, so then this will do more of a top level. And so can you repeat what you said, please?
Work with staff to develop options for addressing affordable housing needs. And upon prioritization, action plans to pursue. Slightly change those a little bit, but my mind still is like. Give me the book out.
All right, any comments regarding that? So I wonder, do we want to keep the insured zoning centers in there? Should we just remove it? Because the affordable housing needs include an action. plan.
Someone put it in, so.
I'm gonna highlight this.
Well, if you could put on the back of that one, just to say, including update of, zoning standard, or review of zoning standard.
Mayor, I just want to let the council members know, the ensure zoning standards with the was a comment that was made at the council retreat. And so I was hoping that it might trigger someone's memory with regards to what comment that they made.
He's not here.
I appreciate you working through this with us.
That's gonna be itch, so the appropriate action on your part, reaction.
Yeah, I think you want to, either lose, oh, sorry. I think you either want to lose staff to develop or staff to address.
I think it was worth with. Right. With,
That should,
we should do this
work,
again.
yeah. No, the phrase was just up there, work with staff to develop, staff to address, and I was just saying, let's pick one.
I'll give her the second one because it's really will be council action to prioritize and determine what to address, and it may be part of our action to put forward enabling things for like funding. So a large chunk of that is and then chair, where, can I make your answer?
I was just gonna say, since I'm trying to roll with the dots, we got another one from that.
That's what I was going after
There
it.
we go.
Mayor, could I just verify that we're on the right track with the changes made for the address options for affordable housing needs and implement action plans, and including review of zoning standards? I just want to make sure you made a mention about a funding statement, but that,
No, that'll be part of the action plan.
okay, certainly. Thank you.
Right.
Well, and does anyone remember what update street standards to include conversation?
It's just a point of order, and ellipses, it's just 3 periods, so. Anything beyond that is.
Councilor Christensen?
I was trying to respond to the provided set of the Leasing Streetscapes. As my understanding, and Councilmember Johnson is on the call, it was my understanding that he had made that comment, I think, with regards to planning, street safety and things of that nature. He could probably address that more clearly. I don't remember exactly what he said. Is he able to speak on the same?
Hand raised. Good. I know that there he is. Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, I'm having some audio issues. It is kind of quiet for some reason. I'm trying to get some headphones or something to kind of help. But yeah, I just heard that last little bit there. Let's see, we're looking at the section with regard to street standards. Oh, yes. So yeah, that has to do with a few things. A big part of it has to do with improving walkability of neighborhoods. There are a number of barriers that people can have with regard to that. I mean, the easiest thing, of course, is sidewalks, but we do a pretty good job of that in general. But there are other things, like if you look at the radius of curvature that's on an intersection, if it's really big, then that tells traffic that they can go really fast, even if the speed limit is lower than what that design suggests. It also increases the distance, sometimes by a significant amount, depending on that radius, for how far a person has to walk. And people with different abilities, thank you so much. That will hopefully help. Hopefully, maybe. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, with other abilities can sometimes have a harder time crossing those wider gaps between the curbs. Due to that increased radius curvature. Another thing can be street trees, of course, that provides a sense of both safety from the traffic that's going by and shade. We have a lot of street trees, but there are some areas that maybe could do a little bit better. those are a few ideas that are kind of some specifics with regard to that. Oh, another big one is what are called continuous sidewalks. So when a sidewalk reaches a street, instead of having the sidewalk dip down to the street, you have the street raised up to the height of the sidewalk. Now, of course, you don't do that everywhere. You don't want to have the parkway like that, right? Because people be bumping over things. But in really more neighborhood-centric areas where you want traffic to be going slower, and you want people to feel like the place is theirs, not just a place that's there for cars. Like some of the neighborhoods that are close to parks, that sort of thing. I think it would make sense to have those what are called continuous sidewalks, quote unquote. Yeah, so those were my basic ideas. I hope you caught all that.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Johnson.
So Mayor, I have included update street standards to include pedestrian friendly walkways, street tree placements, and I'm looking for
Continuous sidewalk.
and continuous sidewalk.
Councilor Holly?
So I guess I requested we take this back to public works for discussion. My issue being, street standards is a specific thing. We have those in place and they're primarily driven by national design standards.
Talking in my.
Oh, sorry, they're primarily driven by national design standards. We're talking things at kind of a higher level than that. Those standards may not get into continuous sidewalks. That kind of voices to a different thing of maybe there's a plan for us citywide to address deficiencies in the current street infrastructure to bring them up to standard. But it doesn't necessarily change the standard. And we ought to think of, Councilman Johnson did a good job, but maybe we ought to think about what those things are and how we go chase them.
MUTC.
Monica's Universal Traffic Control Devices, yes. Sorry, inside joke.
Okay. These are just ideas that he's throwing out that we potentially take a look at.
But can we have that as an open discussion item for a public work agenda?
So I guess, yeah, you had for public works, subject to street planning standards. I believe what we're getting at.
Okay, we're got one more and then we're nearing 7 o'clock, so if we could take like a 5 to 10 minute break, that would be good. So is there one other one you want to review real quick?
The dots are gone.
I don't know.
Maybe we can talk about what the next step is. How about that?
Why don't we do that? Because I agree, Mayor, because I think trying to dive into a couple of these would take a lot more. 10 minutes is taking more than 10 minutes for each one we talk about.
Right. I think we're having a really good conversation. So I think we're addressing a lot of these. We've had more priorities and more goals as well as we go along. So should we table this and I don't know if we have it on our, I could look for another time for a special workshop. Okay. Okay, so we'll take that assignment and set another special workshop before a council meeting in the near future.
Yeah, one of the action items on the next park community development committee is to talk about community development priorities as well. I will report back, committee report on how that goes. Maybe we'll have some things to add here too.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to propose that I'll be sending out to all council members the updated sheet so that you have that in advance for study of any committee meetings, and of course would be on committee meeting agenda as well, but you all have them the latest with what we've discussed today.
Great, thank you. All right, there being no further business to come before council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the round table. And we'll reconvene at 7 p.m. for our council meeting So is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion by Counselor Gibson, and then second by Counselor Holloway. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I.
Right. Any opposed, nay? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Sure.
Good evening. We're going to bring the council meeting to order. We just finished a special workshop, and so please note attendance. We have excused Councilor Watton, and looks like Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew and Councilor Johnson have joined us. They are online. So council and guests, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Holloway will lead it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we now move to our first item of business, which is the approve the agenda. Council may I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Holloway and second by Councilor Liste. Councilor, is any discussion? Councilor Christensen.
Mayor Larson, I'd like to move that. Mayor Ross, I'd like to move that we change the agenda such that item 9, which is Agenda Bill 22-085, be moved up to the beginning of the committee reports prior to number 6.
Okay,
It seems as though we have a number of folks in attendance who are here on the ARPA.
yes. Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Christensen and second by Councilor Holloway to move AB 22-085 to the beginning of the committee reports in place in front of the AB 22-096. Any discussion regarding that? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay. And looking at the overall agenda, is there any other comments or questions regarding the agenda? I'm not seeing any hands from our fellow council members online. So overall approval of the agenda, all in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, the agenda is approved. So we have very special business this evening. We are going to do a swearing in ceremony whereby Police Officer Joseph Meadows will take the oath of office. So please come join us, and Chief Phipps, would you please introduce our new police officer and say a few words?
Of course, thank you for allowing us to introduce our newest officer, Joseph Meadows. I also want to thank all the officers that are here to represent. As you know, we are down quite a few, and I think this is really the representation of the support that we give to our newest members. So thank you for that. We're lucky to have them, just like all that we get. I feel blessed again. This gentleman grew up in Washington, Elma, Washington is where he was raised and graduated from high school there, and ultimately found California. He was employed by the LA County Sheriff's Department for 4 years. He went down there in 2018, and after he spent some time down there in the jail system at LA County Sheriff's, he realized maybe he wanted to move back to Washington. And so he tested with us, and he also tested with Snoqualmie County Sheriff's. And with much respect, but I wasn't happy at the time. He was hired by Snoqualmie County Sheriff's first before our process was completed. I reached out to Joseph just to thank him and wish him well in his career, which I hope will be a long one. And in that discussion started up our process, and ultimately learned that Joseph really wanted to be here. He liked the community. It's the kind of place he wanted to work where he can make a difference in this community in his career. And so I was reluctant at first because he's hired by another agency, but also know I don't want to turn down and let somebody go that I think could really help us out. And so Here we are. And why don't you step forward now and the mayor will swear you in.
Right. No. All right. Please raise your right hand. So, and repeat after me. I, Joseph Meadows,
I, Joseph Meadows,
have been duly appointed to the office of the police officer of the city of Snoqualmie, Washington.
having been duly appointed to the office of police officer of the city of Snoqualmie, Washington,
Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office
do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of my office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
and that I will support and maintain the ordinances of the city of Snoqualmie
and the laws and constitution of the state of Washington and of the United States of America.
and the laws and constitution of the state of Washington and of the United States of America.
Excellent. Thank you. Congratulations. Sign these, and then we'll ask your parents, Les and LaDonna, to come forward for the pinning.
An opportunity to take some photos if you'd like with the mayor. That looks sweet. I'll stand in this. Just give Joseph a quick opportunity to maybe say a couple words. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity and look forward to working in the community. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we're just welcome to Snoqualmie, and we're very happy that you joined our force. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so now we are going to have a public hearing for Agenda Bill 22-083, 6-year transportation improvement program for period 2023 through 2028. And the state law requires that each city develops a local 6-year transportation improvement plan, which is called the STIP, and it is updated annually. And state law also requires projects to be included in the STIP in order for cities to compete for transportation funding grants from most federal and state sources. So a good example was the funding for our parkway that we received, and also for SR 18 widening. So this public hearing is for the purpose of receiving comments on the 2023 to 2028 6-year transportation improvement program review. Individuals wishing to make a public comment on this agenda bill may do so in person, by telephone, or using the Zoom teleconferencing application. So the public hearing is now open as of 7:09, and those wishing to provide public testimony, please audibly state your name and city residence for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So again, this is just for the 6-year transportation improvement program. City clerk, Ms. Dodd, do we have anyone that has signed up for the STIP comments?
I believe everyone that has signed up is here for the ARPA discussion, but if I'm mistaken, please step up in the mic.
Looking on your attendees, and if calling in by phone, right, you can hit *9 to raise your hand to speak, and then *6 to mute and unmute. So we'll look to see if anyone's calling by phone. Not seeing anyone raising their hands or hitting the star. Right. Okay, so since there's no testimony this evening, the public portion of this hearing is closed, and now is the time 7:10 p.m. All right. So please note that if you do have questions about this, we will be talking about this later on our agenda as well. Okay, so at this time, we're going to provide time for residents to comment on items on the agenda. And so this would be anything that's obviously not on there, such as this would not be a time to comment on ARPA. I know that many are here to talk about that in a couple minutes. So for ground rules, Snoqualmie residents who are not present have the right to have their elected representatives perform their duties on behalf of the city in an efficient and orderly manner. So therefore, comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please wait to be recognized and state your name and city residence for the record. Direct your comments to the council as a whole and not to individual members. And please note that this is not a time to ask questions of the mayor, council, or staff, or to engage in debate. So the council will quietly, respectfully listen to your concerns. So with that, would anyone like to speak to any concern that is not on the agenda tonight? No one is raising their hands, the attendees. All right. So now we move on to the consent agenda, which contains minutes, let's see, city council meeting minutes for roundtable meeting dated June 13th, 2022. Regular meeting dated June 13th, 2022. Special meeting dated June 14th, 2022. Warrants, approve the claims report dated June 21st, 2022. And the EB 22-064 cybersecurity services, approving an agreement with Darktrace to provide cybersecurity services and authorize the mayor to sign. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Motion by Councilor Christensen, second by Councilor Holloway. Is there any public comment for the items that are on the consent agenda? If so, raise your hand. I am not seeing any. All right. Councilor, is there any discussion? No discussion? Okay, all those approve, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The motion passes unanimously. And the consent agenda is approved. Right, so we move on to committee reports. And the first item is AB 22-085, ARPA authorization for small businesses and community organizations. Councilor Holloway, would you please read the summary and motion?
The purpose of the agenda bill is to authorize the expenditure of ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funds, to support small business community organizations within the city of Snoqualmie. Move to approve agenda bill as presented. May I have a second?
Second. So it's been moved by Councilor Holloway and seconded by Councilor Christensen. So I'd like to note that the ARPA Council Committee and Committee of the Whole held 2 meetings, one on June 16th and one on June 23rd, to provide an opportunity for full council to participate. So we have the motion, it's been seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? So we will raise your hand and you have up to 2 minutes to speak. And our city clerk Estrada will have the timer. And we have a warning as to maybe 30 seconds left.
The light should warn you when when you're close. If it doesn't, then I will adjust it with the next individual, but I will give you a heads up.
Okay. If you'd like to speak, please come to the podium and say your name and your city of residence. And you can speak up to 2 minutes. So if we had a list started, we'll go off the list and then we can.
I believe our first speaker is Kelly Coughlin.
All right,
Hello, everyone.
speak right into the microphone.
Okay. Hi, as you all know, I'm Kelly Coughlin. I am the Executive Director for the Snow Valley Chamber. My resident, I do live in North Bend, but I do I represent Snoqualmie and North Bend, and the other cities. I'm here today because I want to thank you guys for all the work that you have done so far on ARPA. I know it was very, very difficult for every one of you to understand what this means to all of our businesses. But I do want to quickly say that these businesses are barely hanging on right now. And some of our reports are showing that they've made lots of money. But the issue that we're having right now is that the cost of goods outweighs that. So a lot of them are not carrying it through to their customers. So it may look on paper that they are doing absolutely wonderful. But in reality, the cost of goods, the transportation taxes, and all this other stuff has really put a huge bind on our businesses. So I invited a lot of the businesses here tonight. I want you to hear from them directly. And I ask, please consider getting this out as quickly as possible. And I know it's been really hard with the staff, a lot of different people having different staff and stuff that we're just here to hear. And I want you guys to hear directly from these. They're all Snoqualmie businesses. Thank you.
Who's next on the list?
Forgive me if I mispronounce this. Luis La Coquetza.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor and council members. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak tonight and show our concerns. And Kelly, thank you for stating our general problems.
So please be sure you do state your name and the city.
Yes. My name is Voislav Kokeza. I'm with Snoqualmie Brewery, live in Issaquah, Washington. So I understand this started back in January or February, the HARPA. And yes, Samantha has helped us a lot and sent us all the emails and information on what's going on. But somehow, somewhere, between federal government allocation to the city and other cities, cities probably having a problem how to come up with a plan, a good plan that would cover everyone needs, yet stay legal within the law. So it's not easy to stand here and ask for money, and this is started in January, and it wasn't initiated by us. It was recommended that there is money and that we should participate. So here we are participating, and yes, Kelly was very right when she said we have bills and invoices there overdue, and we've been getting short loans and things like that nature to survive. As you know, the last 2 years been very difficult. And now we're catching up, and we're hopeful that the new season and the tourist season will help us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next person on the list is Joelle Gibson.
Evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Joelle Gibson. I reside in Renton. I have a business in downtown Snoqualmie. I'm also here to represent our historic Downtown Merchants Association, which I'm vice president of, and we are the voice of our downtown merchants. And I know there's been a long delay. We hear the frustrations from our merchants, and they come to us and ask us how much longer. This is what I'm planning to do with this money. We have some projects that we're planning on doing. We have some improvements that we'd like to make, but we cannot hit go until these funds are released. And for many of our downtown merchants and businesses, the summer is our busiest time. It's tourist season. And if these funds aren't released now so that the money can be used during this critical time, I think that there's going to be even a greater impact down the road of not having those funds available to them when they most need them. So I respectfully ask that these funds be released now before the tourist season gets even further in, and businesses are intending to use these funds now. And the sooner that we can get them to operate at the greatest capacity, that in turn is going to show in, increased revenue, which is going to be, to the city as well. So thank you.
The next person on our list is Dave Storm.
My name is Dave Storm. I own Buckshot Honey down the street and live in North Bend. I couldn't agree more with the first three speakers. It seems like it's been 6 months. We were told to start getting quotes on how we were going to spend the money. And for myself, a lot of the responsibility of my restaurant falls on me. I do have 5 or 6 employees, but the time spent talking to people and spinning my wheels about how much things I need would cost is just a waste of time. And these were direct instructions from getting the grant. Please get quotes. Please figure out what you're going to spend the money for. And after doing all that, it was just, I feel like we've just been forgotten about. The money really could have helped this summer. A lot of people, it's just so hot up here, like won't sit on my patio without an awning. It's just not safe for the kids to be out there. And that's really what I needed the money for. So yeah, as quickly as possible. I'm not exactly sure, we already went through the whole Small Business Administration, federal government thing where they promised us a bunch of money and took all of our bank accounts, and they were like, just kidding, we lost funding. So, I'm not sure if that's going to happen here. And so I would be very grateful to get money for my business, but at the same time, would not be surprised if I did.
Bill Grassi.
I'm Bill Grassi. I live in Falls City, but have a business up on Snoqualmie Ridge. And I want to say first and foremost, we opened 3 weeks before COVID shut us down. But Snoqualmie has been nothing but pleasant to work with. I love this city and I love having a business here. That being said, through the worst of COVID, we had to shut down. We couldn't do tastings inside. And there was a point in time where we could do tastings, but it was only outside. Partly what we're planning to propose the money for with ours is to build an outdoor seating area that we can keep open during the winter, so that if this happens again, then we can keep the thing open. That being said, I think we're in really good shape, and we are blessed that we were able to open 3 weeks before COVID, and we've had a great 2 years. So if it comes down to, if this is a thing about money, take me off the list first and give all these people what they ask for, what they need, because I know there's a lot of really good need here, and I appreciate it if they at least get a chance. We'll be on. So.
The next person on the list is Catherine Putchwick.
Hello, council. Sorry, this is like one of my least favorite things is public speaking. So, I'm Catherine Podchwit. I live here in Snoqualmie, and I co-own a business with Miss Dory Ross, president of the Merchant Association down here, Chickadee Bake Shop, and we were invited to apply for the ARPA funds, and that was back in late fall, early winter. And that was a different stressful time And then within these past 6 months, I kind of wanted to share a little bit about what's been going on. So staffing, you've heard, there's been staffing shortages all over the place. I went to bed one night and woke up the next day and my supplier increased everything by 20%. We've had to diversify across 5 or 6 different wholesalers for goods due to shortages. And our delivery drivers asked for more money when the gas prices went up. And yeah, overall cost of goods or COGS has increased about 40% overall. And that is just what's happened after we applied. So I would just encourage you to obviously listen to all of us and all of our different varying needs, and hopefully we can expedite this process. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Francisco Montalio or Montalto.
I'm not really good at this, but good evening, everyone, and thank you for listening like 2 minutes here. Well, I'm Francisco Montalto. I live in Bellevue, but I have a business here on the Ridge in Snoqualmie. The name is Francisco Restaurant. It's an Italian restaurant. I've been there for 4 years. I want to thank the community, including probably a lot of you guys has been there. And I just want to say that, yes, I agree with everyone here. What they're saying is perfectly the right, is true. Everything has increased. We are low on staff. We cannot, I mean, I'm working directly myself as a waiter in my restaurant doing the service because I cannot find anyone. And on top of that, as they say, and then I can testify that, is the fact that the product is going up tremendously. Every day, something new. I use prime product, the best product there is, and the product that's going up 20, 30, 40, 50%, depending on what I buy. And then, of course, I cannot modify my price on the menu because by modifying the price on the menu, it looks already high. And by modifying it and increasing these prices, it becomes really difficult to kind of, before 2 years ago, we were making money. Now we are not, we are surviving. And so 6 months ago, 7 months ago, something like that, I got an email from Sam Brownfield. I don't see her here, but
She's online.
Oh, she's online. Oh, okay. Hi, Sam. Anyways, I received this email and I applied for the funds. I need the funds because I do have a west exposure sun, which is particularly strong. For the 10 hours of the day, I have the sun right there banging on my windows, and I'm trying to do anything possible to protect my deck so that people can be there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon versus at 9 o'clock at night when everybody goes back to bed. So I hope that what everybody's saying here is something that you're going to take into consideration, and hopefully that you approve those funds. Thank you.
Larry Manel.
Hi, I'm Larry Maneo. Actually, she's pronounced it correctly. I know. It's like I changed my name just to Americanize it. But I'm with Snow King Ice Arena up here, but I live in Mill Creek. Hearing all these people, it's super hard to come and ask for money when you know these people are having a difficult time making it. So for us, our rent is like $98,000 a month, $19,000 in utilities. I can go on and on. If there's money available to us, great. It seems like there's greater need for some of these other people. I'm the other gentleman. I would prefer you guys give it to them. But if you have some, great, we'll take it. You know. But aside from that, I think that you guys realize that it's important to make sure these businesses survive. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Dory Ross.
Hello, my name is Dory Ross. I live in downtown Snoqualmie and I own Chickadee Bake Shop, KD.
And I'm also the president of the Downtown Merchant Association. Sorry, my throat's weird. I've had pneumonia. I agree with everyone. I mean, I get literally emails weekly, or when I'm walking the street talking to all the businesses. This is the number one question that I'm asked. Have you heard anything? Do you have any inside information? So the need is definitely there. A lot of people have used their personal savings. A lot of people have used their retirement funds just to try to keep their businesses afloat. So anything that we can do as a community would be amazing. And for everyone to come and say, please do this, please apply, and then we're not getting anything back it's disheartening a little bit for them. So I want to be supportive of them as the president. I also want to be working hand in hand with the city. Mayor Ross knows that I stay in pretty close contact with Cole and constantly, making sure that we have a great relationship, and that's something that we would like to keep doing moving forward. On a personal note, one of the things that, Katie and I were talking about today in the car, it sounds really funny to give you this example, but I think it really shows you. We've been in business for less than 2 years. Eggs were 8 cents a piece when we started. They're 38 cents a piece today. We're a bakery. We use a ton of eggs, butter, chocolate. I mean, everybody always assumes it's chocolate. It is chocolate, it's everything. So cost is just increased incredibly. We've taken a hit by giving our drivers more because of gas prices, which I don't think are going to go back down anytime soon. So I think we just, anything you guys can do to help would be amazing for everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you. The final person on our list is Debbie Zaragoza.
Hi, I'm Debbie Zaragoza. I own Infusion Bar and Grill in the Ridge. Can you tell me more into my Debbie with Infusion Bar and Grill. As everybody said, we've all kind of felt the same pain with everything and taken on a lot of expenses. With all the goes that tents, that's $4,000 a month. We were fortunate enough in the Ridge that people were so great to us. But definitely, if we would get money, I would do something there. One thing I want to get accomplished is that if we have a tent out there, they'll actually show up. So we want to do something a little different. Our landlord gave us 0. Like they didn't deduct anything. They didn't give us any discounts, nothing. They just sent us reminders on the 30th that our rent was around first. And I'm sure that that's true for a lot of people. Luckily, we were able to pay it and the month. But the money definitely came handy to help with that. And for all the costs that we've taken on during COVID. Like I said, we've gotten huge support out of the community, but tons of people now asking how to for donations and stuff. And we try to help out every day. So yeah, definitely in need of funding. You guys have it. Thanks.
Okay, anyone left on one?
I don't have anyone else.
Mayor, that's going to be Darren Gillespie.
Okay, Darren Gillespie.
Yeah, hi, my name is Darren Gillespie, Anytime Fitness on Center Boulevard. We've been in business there for about 10 years. We serve thousands of local residents. We hire local staff. And of course, COVID has really taken a big bite out of our business. We were closed for 6 months. Restaurants and gyms were probably among the hardest hit industries, as we all know, and we had no alternate plan, no curbside pickup, nothing like that. And so along the way, we've incurred lots of expenses as it relates to rents, deferred rents, also maintenance, deferred maintenance, and capital costs of replacing equipment that has a definite life. So we would like to continue on in Snoqualmie and continue to serve the public. It's a worthwhile thing to have healthy and fit people, but we really did get hurt badly, and any funds that we could get would go back towards paying back some of the debts that we incurred. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to something happening soon.
Thank you, Darren. Is there any other public comment regarding ARPA funds? Yes.
My name's Sherwood Corshon, and I've been hanging around down at the south end of Douglas Avenue since 2006, when it was just bears and other folk like that. I'm not here to ask for any money, but I would like to make an observation that at some point in time, not in while the people were here, but before that, the project up there was to be for workers. There were to be office buildings and people like that who came and used the village. And for a long time, the village was pretty busy. And then when Safeway got in there, there was somebody else and a number of restaurants, etc. So I thought at the time that was kind of a bad idea, and I'm convinced that it is now, because it's taken away a lot of what would have been in the village. And the village used to be the village. We would have, the street would be blocked off and people would come from all over. So far, it's not been that way, and people are not coming up to the ridge in that, where that group of people are who do business, especially the restaurant people. And I think it would be good to have some really good focus and maybe a bit of your money to put into getting some advertising to get some things going. But we used to have once a month, we would shut off the main street there, and people would come up and just have a party. I've watched a lot of these people, because I've been working with Francesco to do things that help bring people in. And I've seen a lot of people along that street, and it's kind of sad because everybody's working hard, and the landlords are the ones that are making the money. And I know I'm off time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Snoqualmie Ridge Storage if you need a truck.
Right. Okay. Any other comments? Looking online is none. Right. So thank you everyone for your comments. Council, do we have any discussion regarding our planning? Councilman Conway, we'll start off with you.
Couple of matters in particular. When we first started out this review, I'll admit, I got involved less than 2 months ago. But when we started that process down the road, we had several businesses which in the current agenda package were not allocated funds. There were 3 businesses which had lapsed business licenses, 2 of which would not have paid B&O in any case. After further committee discussion, we'd like to bring those businesses back onto the list with the provision that they become current in terms of business licensing, past license fees, and B&O obligations to the city. Therefore, I move to substitute the current ARPA small business nonprofit listing you have in your hand with that in the agenda, incorporating those 3 businesses and redistributing the funds accordingly. Seconded.
There's a motion to use this revised list by Councilor Holloway and second by Councilor Christensen. Any discussion regarding that? Councilor Singh.
Can you help us out by telling us which ones have been substituted in?
Oh, I could have had it better memory. Sam, you have those individuals listed?
Yes, so, hi, everybody. So the businesses that were added back in were Cafe Mini, SWC Properties, that one's kind of at the top, and Admiral Enterprise.
And the 2 of those are real estate investments that have less than the number of properties required, participation.
Councilor Johnson.
Did I hear correctly? And I just want to make sure they understand this, that this list is included in the agenda bill. It's not just like something that was sent to us as a separate thing.
It should have been, did we send this to the council members not physically present?
It's in the agenda packet.
Yeah.
Samantha?
Well, this
The agenda packet doesn't just represent what's in our hand.
this is a substitute for what's in the agenda package.
Okay, but it's not necessarily part of the agenda bill.
It will be if we approve the substitution. Again, I was not going to change the agenda bill coming out of FNA.
Right.
I'm gonna be a stickler on that. What comes out of committee goes to council. We modify it once we get into council.
Yeah, thank you.
Any comment? Other comment? Councilor Say.
My only concern is that the two council members who are remote would not have seen this revised list. No way to get it to them.
Email it to them right now.
This is the original list.
It's not what's represented in the
It's
agenda.
not what's in the agenda.
It's not the last time.
Chair,
Councilor Holloway.
given the duration of this, I need to expose, or I need to cure a situation that may be perceived as conflict of interest. Okay, during the past 2 weeks, my daughter home from college has applied for employment, has accepted employment with a business that is on the list. Non-contingent, I have not contacted the business, nor have we had any substantial discussions of that business as part of the committee. Or change their input, nor their scoring. I've had no contact with this question, nor have there been any specific conversation of substance in regards to this business. As stated, the business submitted their application, staff scored the submittals, and the committee facilitated the programmatic allocation of funds, which Sam will tell you the difficulty we put her through. The business in question received no unique consideration or adjustments in this regard. With that stated, if any council member wishes to challenge my participation in the vote, I will recuse.
Does not sound like a conflict.
Councilor Vincent.
Does not sound like a conflict to me. Thank you for letting us know.
Councilor Vincent.
I had two things about, I don't have anything about those three businesses. Is it okay to move on to other aspects of this? One thing I wanted is a number of the people who made comment made reference to us coming to us asking for money. You're not asking us for money. This is your money. This is not, we didn't generate this money. We have been put in a position to distribute the money. We're trying to do that as equitably as we can. And I'm sorry we've taken so long, and I understand the pain that you guys have gone through. We all do. And we are sorry for that. But you aren't asking anybody for money. This is your money. And we're just trying to get it to you in the fairest way possible. So we all wish that it didn't take this long. That being said, there was one nonprofit on here that was receiving zero, and I didn't understand the reason during the Thursday meeting, or I would have addressed this then. The Helping Hands Ministry is receiving zero, and my understanding is that we decided to hire them as a contractor, basically to help distribute some other ARPA funds, which I think is totally appropriate. I just want to make the point that it's not, that doesn't address, that addresses work that they're going to do that they would rightfully receive payment for. It doesn't address losses that they incurred due to COVID. So if I had my druthers and there was a way to do it, I would say I wish that we were also distributing ARPA funds for losses that they incurred during COVID. Does that make sense?
Well, and Chair, if I may,
Councilor Howland.
Agreed. There's, prior council action was on $200,000 to Helping Hands. Basically, in the view that council is not in a position to measure individual needs. They are in a better position to do that, therefore they are in a better position to act on our behalf and distribute those funds. That was done in a prior council agenda bill. Three councils ago.
Brian, use your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Where's that big red flag? Apologize, I'm not used to speaking. I have trouble public speaking too, believe it or not. So again, in the view that they are in a better position and have better practices for reviewing those individual needs, we allocated 200,000 to them to do that.
Which I think is totally appropriate. I don't misunderstand. I think that's an appropriate decision. I think Helping Hands will do an incredible job in distributing those funds, and that they should be compensated for doing that work. But their appearance on this list indicates that they were seeking funds to remedy losses during COVID. Losses that weren't, that everybody here, nobody had anything to do with the losses that they incurred. That this was inflicted upon them by choices made by people above them, and they had no power to do anything but react to that. And the same is true of Helping Hands. I'm glad that we are engaging them in the future or currently as a contractor to do this work. But I wish that they had also been compensated for losses incurred during COVID.
Councilor Howland.
And so there is some administrative costs that are in that 200K. But beyond that, the truth of the matter is the community was very supportive during the pandemic. Helping Hands wasn't necessarily on this list for the hurt they had. They had enough funds to carry out their business. The community stood up and gave them money to help those individuals hurt by COVID during there. So they didn't have any loss that they declared directed to us on this sheet. Samantha, correct me if I'm going off path and wrong.
No, you are correct. They did not show a loss of revenue.
So then that's great. Okay, that's not the understanding that I had. So thank you for disabusing me of that. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Councilor Christensen.
I was just gonna take a minute and say thank you everyone to your patience. We've been trying to get the funds out as quickly as we can. It has been difficult just because all of the businesses that came to us came with different needs and we're looking to fulfill different types of things. And so trying to come together as a community and as a committee here and trying to figure out what was the fairest way that we could do it was really difficult. I joined the ARBA committee, which is everyone spoke with Councilmember Holloway as well. And we do want to make sure that we get the funds out quickly to you all. We appreciate how hard you've been working and we know that it's been a struggle. I want to make sure that you all know that we do understand that and we do appreciate that it has not been easy. I'm glad that we're getting near, hopefully, the end where we can make the distribution. Just thank you for your patience.
Robin, Councilor Mayhew, do you have any comments? No comments. Okay. Any other comments? Councilor Holloway?
I do want to address a couple of comments that were made in the public comment section. Well, I'm not supposed to. I'm not going to propose any adjustments. I'm really impressed and humbled by some of you coming up and saying, give my money somewhere else. But I'm going to stick with the list to get you a yay or an nay tonight. The other part is I'm also not going to I will very seldom take the opportunity to compete one section of town with another. Very seldom. So I'm not even going to approach that subject tonight. That was it for further comments from me.
Any other comments?
Did you want to get Councilman Johnson and Megan on the line?
Well, Councilor Mayhew had no comment. Councilor Johnson, do you have another comment?
There. Yeah, I want to make sure you actually came to me. No, actually I don't, but thank you for asking.
Councilor Singh?
I guess this is the point where we're on a substituted item, so there's a motion and a second for substituting what was previously issued to this.
Right.
So we need to do that first, and then we vote on the overall.
Right,
Even
okay.
though it's essentially the same thing. Just want to clarify the procedure.
Okay, so we're ready to vote on the motion, substituted document. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? No, okay. Now we move on the original motion to distribute the ARPA funds, authorization for small business and community organizations. That's what it say.
I just wanted to say, I wanted to speak to the entire group since we've added 3 more deserving businesses. We've all seen what's happened. We live here. We wouldn't be on council if we didn't. So we've seen what's happened. We've seen the struggles that you guys have gone through. We've seen businesses close. We've seen the lack of staffing. We've seen, the distribution issues. You guys have really stuck it out. I'm glad that the community pulled this together and was able to get to the funds distributed in, I think, a very fair and equitable way. There's no favoritism. There's no efforts to offer one versus another. So I just want to say congratulations.
All ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, motion passes. So we will be distributing funding as fast as possible. I really appreciate everyone for showing up tonight and telling us about your effort. I also like to thank our staff and our ARPA coordinators, Samantha Broomfield and Nicole Weeby and Drew Boutte, and then also our ARPA Council Committee members, Councilor Holloway, Councilor Christensen, and Councilor Watton, who is not here this evening. So thank you, everyone. And we have a long agenda, so you don't have to feel obligated to stay. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. And thank you, Sam. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sam.
thank you, Sam.
You still got a lot of work.
Thank you,
ahead.
guys.
Well, yeah, so he's working night shift right now.
Moving on to Public Safety Committee, Agenda Bill 22-096. Please take home car and lease program. Councilor Christensen, would you please read the summary and motion?
The police department is proposing the adoption of the take-home car program and move from the current city purchase of police vehicles to a lease program. The take-home car program proposal is to increase the number of police applicants, attract competent and qualified applicants, and as a retention incentive for our current officers. The leasing program allows for better planning of future costs, while also incurring anticipated cost savings in the future.
Thank you.
The proposed action is moved to approve the police take-home car and vehicle lease program.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
So it's moved by Councilor Christensen and seconded by Councilor Benson. Any public comment on this item? Please understand that public comments must be related to this agenda bill only. It will limit your comments to 2 minutes. Please state your name and residence.
Yes, my name is Cheryl Lutz. My mailing address is P.O. Box 277, Snoqualmie, Washington. I'm well aware that the officers from Snoqualmie have been taking home their vehicles for years. I've seen the public records where we see Almquist who left by the state attorney general. That would be via Daniel Gion for civil rights violations. That would be for a
threat against me for a First Amendment violation via the Attorney General's office. Nick Almquist was charging multiple good-to-go charges to our city account every month. Anybody can public records request those. So he was taking home his car already. Multiple officers already have been taking home their cars for years. So I think that this is probably a situation where we are looking to cover up for a fact that the police officers are taking home their cars as personal vehicles. That is completely appropriate in a Washington State patrol situation. I come from 3 generations of law enforcement. I have my degree in law and justice, Catherine Ross. I understand you have no respect for me, nor do you respond to my emails. But I might know more about law and justice than you do. And I'd like to make really clear to you, Catherine Ross, that it's not normal that municipal police take home their police cars. I'd like to make really clear to you, Catherine Ross, that the expenditures from this police department via multiple public records requests are not typical. And that includes not only personal car expenditures, it includes personal credit card expenditures, it includes hotel stays, it includes all kinds of training that isn't training that the CTJS certifies. That's being pulled.
Your
right now.
time. Time's up. Chief Phipps, is there a presentation for this item?
Thank you for allowing us to bring this forward to you. It's been talked about since I've been here, about take-home cars. And really, the officers have been the champion of this, as I spoke to before, and probably have seen this presentation by Officer Chase Smith. He'll be up shortly to give his presentation as well. But I want to thank you for taking a look at this program. It's a great retention and hiring incentive. In fact, one of my interviews that I had last week, one of his questions of me was, do we have the take-home car program? So they're actually looking into these issues as well. And so I'll take the time right now, and I'll be back later, but right now I'll give it to Officer Chase Smith.
Hello, everyone. I know I've seen a handful of you guys before, but we haven't met. My name's Chase Smith. I have 7 years law enforcement experience. I'm a patrol officer with the city of Snoqualmie. I've been employed here for 5 years. And prior to that, I was with the Federal Lake Police Department. So kind of a brief history of the process to get here. So take-home vehicles are becoming increasingly popular in the state. We've been trying to implement them for 5 years. And it was the biggest one in our current contract negotiation, which we wrapped up a few months ago. I gave this presentation to Mayor Ross and City Administrator Sauerwein during our department meeting in March, and they recommended taking it to the Public Safety Committee. Went to the Public Safety Committee the first time. After that first meeting, we had several meetings with relevant department heads, including fleet, finance, and IT. And really kind of this process evolved into something that we really think we're working with something good now. So we went back to Public Safety Committee last week, and now we're thankful to be here with you guys today. So the presentation goals: explain how this benefits the city, explain how this benefits the police department, discuss our vision for the take-home and lease vehicle program, and answer any questions that you all may have. So program benefits for the city. The most comprehensive study that I located is locally, actually, out of the Tacoma Police Department. It was an 8-year study conducted by an outside consultant and professor from the University of North Carolina. Take-home vehicles in this study showed they reduced operating costs per mile by 30%. The cost savings is based off of longer vehicle life, less damage, accident repair costs, and reduced maintenance costs. Another study of the Daytona Beach Police Department, the fleet manager was quoted as saying, maintenance and repair costs have gone down on the program vehicles. Officers take better care of the vehicles over pool cars because no one else can be blamed for the poor care. They also don't run the vehicles as hard, which is better for fuel mileage. The user will keep the vehicle cleaner, inspect it on a regular basis, answer up to damage, and generally take more pride. Another benefit of take-home vehicles is it gives perception of more officers on the street, which reduces opportunistic criminal activity. And what I mean by that is when using a pool vehicle, it takes between 25 to 40 minutes per day to load and unload your patrol car and put your uniform off and on. This results in double-digit non-productive days per year. The response time for emergency call out is significantly decreased. If there's a call where we need all hands on deck, or I need to be to a scene, I'm gonna be able to do it much quicker from a patrol car from my house, opposed to driving my personal vehicle to the station, putting on my uniform, loading up my gear, and then going to the scene. A big one, this is kind of the major reason we're doing this, is it's a positive recruiting and retention mechanism in an extremely competitive market right now. We have a lack of lateral officers expressing interest in our department. This is a tool that will help. Kind of as the chief mentioned earlier, we're constantly trying to recruit officers from other agencies to lateral. And one of the first questions out of their mouth is, do you guys have take-home cars? And that pretty much ends the conversation, quite frankly. This is a retention mechanism because it will help keep our officers here. As I previously mentioned, it was the #1 want throughout our contract negotiations. One big stat that I want to share with you guys is it costs $150,000 to hire an entry-level officer. So every time an officer leaves our agency, lateral, for example, it's essentially $150,000 cost to the city's improvement. So 74% of agencies in King, Pierce, Snoqualmie, and Thurston County have take-home vehicles. This was a statistic from 2019. I anticipate that number now, 3 years later, to probably be about 80%. Program benefits for the police department. Increase in morale. We're worn out right now. Our officers have been working mandatory overtime on every shift for the past 9 months. Officers are being mandatory to work on their days off. I did my time card last week and I had 75 hours of overtime on it. We have officers excess of 100 and even 130 hours of overtime for the month of June. Fully staffed patrol would be 20 personnel. We are currently at 12. We do have 2 officers in field training right now, but we do have another officer that's lateraling to another department at the end of July. So as I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, another benefit for the police department is with take-home vehicles is the ability for us to recruit officers from other agencies. It's difficult for us to do that right now when other agencies are offering $20,000 in a take-home vehicle. We had an officer, great young officer, he'd been here 2 or 3 years. He lateraled to Renton Police Department, where he got 20 grand and a take-home car as soon as he was off training him. Once again, it's $150,000 essentially fee that the city incurred by losing an officer. Increase in officer safety as it would increase the backup potential for officers on duty. What I mean by this is, officers won't be wasting their time at the station securing their vehicle and changing in and out of their uniform. From the moment they come into the city limits and the moment they leave, they're on duty and responding to calls. Familiarity with the vehicle and confidence in its condition, which allows officers to keep their equipment in one place and not to move it after their shift or work week. This might seem minor, but our patrol vehicle is essentially our office. So imagine coming into your office every single Monday and having things moved around, and having to put them back the way they were. In kind of reaching out to other agencies that have take-home vehicles, I noticed something interesting that Issaquah Police Department said. Since they've implemented take-home vehicles, their officers are way more likely to sign up for overtime shifts. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So take home and lease vehicle program. I'm going to tell you what this kind of direction we want to go here. So why leasing? Why do we want to transition from leasing vehicles opposed to the outright purchasing that we're doing now? Well, last year the city spent over $100,000 replacing engines and transmissions on high mileage vehicles. So essentially what we're doing by leasing these is we'd be swapping them out before there's typically a high priced repair. Who we'd be using for leasing is FCI, who's based out of North Bend. They work with many police departments throughout the state, departments all the way from the size of Pasco to Medina and Mercer Island. So what we are proposing for the leased vehicles is a 4-year, 75,000-mile lease on the vehicles. So how that works is whatever comes first. If you get 4 years first or 75,000 miles, at that point, you would swap the vehicle out. This is something we would plan for, so we wouldn't have overage costs, mileage overage costs. Those are 20 cents per mile, but we could plan for this to where that's not going to be happening. Another thing that we've talked about within the department is, for example, I live in Untitled, so my commute is going to be much larger than someone who lives up on Snoqualmie Ridge. So we're doing a 4-year lease on these cars. After 2 years, I would switch with that officer that lives on the ridge. So we're helping balancing out the amount of miles that are being put on these cars. So one car is not getting a bunch of miles, and the other one's getting barely none at all. So the cost of this is $1,580 per month per vehicle. We would slowly begin leasing the vehicles. I'm proposing we would have 4 leased vehicles this year. So for our existing vehicles, once those vehicles hit the end of their life, we would sell them and transition that spot into a leased vehicle spot. So like I said, I'm proposing we start this year with the plan to become fully leased fleet by 2026. So with that price I gave you of the cost per month, one great thing about doing this with FCI is all the equipment is included in that lease price. Computers, lights, radios, everything in that car is going to be included. And that's, with this equipment, it's something that can be carried over for 2 to 3 vehicle lives. So if you buy a brand new car with all new equipment, after that 4 years, we can take that equipment and put it in the new lease car. It's actually going to drop the price of that leasing price per month because we're not having to pay for that equipment a second or third time. So to start, just based on the number of vehicles we have, 6 officers would have a full-time take-home vehicle. The remaining officers would have a take-home vehicle on their work week only. We base off of rank and seniority. As we acquire more vehicles, more officers would transition to a full-time take-home vehicle. As far as the mileage allowance that we're proposing, 30 miles as a crow flies from the city limits, and current officers will be grandfathered in. We only have 2 officers that live outside of that 30-mile range. A vast majority of our officers live within 20 miles. And then lastly, an MOU would be created and agreed upon by the city and SBA. I already have a draft of one that I used from Visit Walk. Go ahead.
Councilor Howie?
What does grandfather did mean?
So essentially they would just be, so we're saying that a 30-mile would be the allowance, but the officers that are already employed with the city that live outside that range would be essentially accepted into the program, if you will.
Councilor Benson?
Does that mean if any officers that we bring on, because I know we have vacancies?
Absolutely. So
would be
yeah,
within the 30 miles? Are we making that a requirement for hiring officers? Because I don't like that idea. If we get a good officer that lives 35 miles away.
totally. Ultimately, it's up to the chief's discretion, right? But this is just kind of what we're proposing at this point. Felt like that's a fair number with, like I said, all the 2 officers live outside of that 30-mile range right now. I don't think it's realistic to do 100 miles or 75 miles. That's a little far. We don't want officers commuting that far anyway. It's not healthy. So we thought like this was a balance for what we have right now.
It might be helpful to have just like an average distance from the police station that officers live, just to get a general idea of what our average distance is.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably around 18. Would be my best assumption.
That seems reasonable.
Councilor Howie?
So the 2 officers who live greater than 30 miles are grandfathering in. What is the proposed process for future officers who live outside that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, what a lot of other agencies do, every agency typically has a mileage allowance like this. So if they live outside of that, they would park it at wherever that 30-mile limit is, let's say. They'd park it at a police station that's within that 30 miles or a fire station. And obviously, ultimately, that's something that we get cleared with the chief. We have to get approval from the other agency, but that's something that's very common, very common.
Councilor Benson?
I would like to suggest that we not do that because it seems to me we lose some of the benefits of having the police vehicle with the officer. So
We
my
can certainly.
preference would
up
be
that
that we,
number.
my preference, my preference would be that we look at an average of.
Yeah, I think
of the
Issaquah is
officer.
50 right now.
I'm just talking about an average within our police station. You know, if our police department has an average that's well under that 30 miles, then if there's an officer that's 40 miles away, I would much rather that officer take the vehicle home so that we get all the benefits of him having the vehicle on hand.
Right.
Councilor Pro Tem Mayhew, do you have a comment?
No, just I'm confused. Are we into council debate? Or are we still in the presentation? I'm just confused where we're at in the process.
Further presentation?
Yeah, I just have one more paragraph to read.
Okay.
Kind of a closing, if you will. So ultimately, the intent of this take-home and lease vehicle program is to increase operational efficiency, provide increased ability to respond to emergencies, improve cost efficiency of vehicle use by reducing overall maintenance costs, and improve hiring and retention of police officers. Sorry.
Thank you.
Do you guys have more questions?
We do have Drew Boutet here who can talk through the
Numbers. Guy.
numbers. Any comments from our chief?
I just was gonna hand it off to Drew for a budget impact in the financial side of it.
Thank you, Chief Phipps, and thank you very much, Officer Smith. Good evening, council. It's good to be here with you today. We do have a memo as a part of your agenda packet, as a part of this agenda bill, and it's a financial impact statement basically for the program that Chase just proposed. In essence, what we're doing is we're actually looking at the cost side of things. Officer Smith just described for you the benefits. One of those benefits is overall it's the cost avoidance. We talked about retention, how much potential money we could save from that. But I want to also suggest to you that employee morale, overtime, these are all kind of some benefits that are kind of hard to quantify at the moment. But also we just had a discussion at 6 o'clock describing our council priorities overall. And so I just want to make sure that we bring those back up again because council at that time identified maintaining the levels of service by retaining and recruiting officers. And this is kind of one of the first proposals, right, from the police department in order to help us accomplish that. So just want to make sure that's there. The goal of this memo itself is to determine how much it would cost the city basically to move towards a take-home lease program in comparison to what we already do, which is the current program. Just to get into that a little bit, Officer Smith described basically ramping up this program over time over a 6-year period. As a part of this memo on page number 6, we've included a table for you that compares the current program against the lease take-home program, as well as a third option, which could also be or is a purchase take-home program. And one of the most important numbers as a part of this table is at the bottom, where you will find the annual difference in the cost of the lease take-home program in comparison to the current program. By our estimates, this program would cost the city of Snoqualmie about $150,000 more on an annual basis in comparison to the current program. Now, it's important to note that those costs would be split. They would split not only between Snoqualmie would pay its portion, but also North Bend would have to pay a component to this program as well, because our police department has officers that also serve North Bend. So that is one of the most important numbers that you'll find there. And this number is measured in today's dollars. Just to go through some of the methodology, what we included as a part of this is we consider the leases and how much that would cost over a 4-year period for each vehicle. Inflation, we've incorporated that into here. The additional insurance that would cost the city basically to insure those vehicles. Additional administrative costs. As part of that administrative cost, the city would propose hiring a 3/4 time mechanic to support us through this, as well as the commuting and maintenance costs that would come with this program as well. On page 9, we've included a number of notes and assumptions. What I want to say is probably note 9 and note 10 are probably the most important notes that you'll find in here. Where not only do we compare the annual difference between a lease take-home program and current program for both Snoqualmie and North Bend, but we also include 2 additional tables that compare those 2 programs if we were to fully lease today. As I stated earlier, this program would ramp up over time over a 6-year period, and that's how we get to $150,000 annually. But if we were to move directly to a lease program today, it would actually cost us about $315,000 annually. And so you can kind of think of that number as something that would come maybe in 2027 as we fully implement this program. In addition to that, one of the additional scenarios that we considered was a fully leased fleet today, but also a fully staffed department as well. And as a result, that would cost both Snoqualmie and North Bend roughly $475,000 more annually than the current program. And the splits on that you can see under notes 9 and note 10 between Snoqualmie and North Bend. And so as I stated earlier, we have to consider not only the costs, and this memo is really only presenting one half of the picture, but we also have to consider the benefits of the program overall. And those benefits can be difficult to quantify. We've earned $150,000 to hire an entry-level officer and basically get them in the door here. But there are other potential benefits that I believe you guys can see qualitatively. It's just hard to put a number directly behind that. And so I believe with that said, thank you very much. And I think we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Councilor Holloway.
Partial answer. So where's the $150,000 to $500,000 you're coming from? How are we going to fund this?
Well, that's a great question. And I think that, right? Right?
Yeah.
So in essence, we would continue to look at our general fund as we move forward in the budget. We would find the appropriate savings. If it reduces our costs elsewhere, that would make up for the potential cost of this program itself.
Councilor Hussain.
And so there's an offset in essence.
So I want to continue on that line of questioning because, we do our budgets in 2-year cycles. So if I look at 2023 and 2034, while the average may be 472,000 for the fully staffed version and 300,000, and split within North Bend. So taking that into consideration, 2023 and 2024 are over $1 million in the next 2 years, not an average of it's 506,000 and 504,000. Under the current program, with no vacant positions, it's 670,000 and 677,000 for the 2 years. So it's a significantly more than the average. So I ask again the question, where are we going to get the money from?
Can I ask what table specifically?
I'm looking at note 9 and note 10.
Okay.
So I'm seeing 2023 and 2024 indicating significantly higher amounts, probably because the program started. I understand that. There's upfront costs. But we're also at the time where we have the least amount of opportunity to find new sources of funding.
So the years in which you find decreases or numbers that are lower, those tend to be years in which we purchase vehicles. And so the next 2 years in which we purchase vehicles is 2025 and 2027, which is why you see 267 and $71,000 in 2027 there. Just for your edification on that. In essence, we talked about offsets, talked about the need to train, right? For example, potentially we could reduce those training expenses, but also if we think about the police force itself right now is relatively small in comparison to what we've had in the past right now. And as a result, it's driving up our overtime expenses. And so one of the measures that we look at is how much can we potentially reduce overtime in order to compensate for this program.
Why are they all here?
Councilor, please be quiet. Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew, you have comment?
Yeah, so can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I think there's a number of things that are kind of put together into this agenda bill, and I think it makes it really hard to sort of wade through. And I think just to cut to the chase, I think we should absolutely not adopt this agenda bill as it's presented. But let's try and sort of take apart the pieces. I will say, if I was going to spend $468,000 more a year on our police department, I'd want more police officers on the street. not cars parked somewhere far away from our city. But I think the bigger issue here is the financial analysis here. It is revealing an underlying problem that Chief Phipps has been bringing to our attention for a few years, and I'm completely on his side on. And that is that all of these comparisons are versus our current program. Our current program isn't working the way it should. So, big picture, here's the important thing to understand. We already lease all of our police vehicles. We already lease every single one of them. And we lease them from an entity that charges us 0 profit and 0 interest rate. And that is from our own equipment replacement fund. Excuse me, our own equipment replacement fund, our own vehicle replacement fund. The issue with how we're operating, so therefore, the vehicles purchased by our vehicle replacement fund will always, this is just math, they will always be cheaper than getting them from a leasing company. You might ask, well, why do many companies use leasing companies? And the reason is they don't have the ability to buy those vehicles up front. They don't have the money. Prior councils for the last 20 years have been very fiscally responsible. We have fully funded a vehicle replacement program. So we are in a position that very few cities in the state are in, which is the position to fully fund the purchase of police vehicles ourselves, and then charge those out to the police department with 0 profit, 0 interest rate built in. The problem we have is we haven't re-looked at how we're doing the vehicle replacement program charge outs to the police department. And so what's happening is the police department's getting hit with charges for vehicles that are in excess of the vehicle usage that they actually have. So all of this analysis that you see here is based on a comparison of overcharging the police department for their existing vehicles. That's what we need to fix. So that's a completely separate issue from take-home vehicles. It's simply this question of leasing the vehicles. It will always be less expensive to buy them and then charge them out to the police department. We just need to get that equation right and stop overcharging them. So I would really encourage us not to, just for this reason alone, let's separate these issues. We've been asking for 3 years in the F&A committee to review the vehicle replacement program, the ER&R fund allocation policy and process and the amounts. And I think it's time to insist that that happen. Let's get these charges to the police department correctly reflecting the actual cost of the vehicles they have. And then this vehicle leasing notion will go away because there will clearly be no benefit to doing that. So I would say the idea that we start a leasing program, then we hire a 3/4 time maintenance person. If we're going to spend more money, let's spend it on more police officers. So let's turn this down for the simple reason that leasing is not something that makes any sense. It's just math. It cannot make any sense. So if we need to relook at how we're doing which we do, the charge outs, let's do that. That's number one. Number two,
I'm interrupting that. So, look, I think there's some that, or did you have a question regarding that particular comment?
No. When Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew is finished, I'd like to respond.
Okay, but Drew Retain, did you want to respond to this, to that particular?
I'm sorry, I'm not debating with staff. Do I not have the floor?
I wasn't trying to take the floor, Tim, sorry.
Okay, I thought there's somebody else wanted to make a comment to the comment you just made.
Do I not have the floor? I'm sorry, am I being cut off?
You have the floor.
All right, so the leasing program cannot make any sense. It's simply math. There's a profit element with a leasing company. There isn't when we do it. All right, then with regard to the take-home vehicle portion of this, I would just say, actually, take-home vehicles were not the #1 request from the SPA. The #1 request was higher compensation level, higher COLA adjustment. This is going to be an enormous problem for us going forward. We have much higher inflation. We have very limited resources as a city. We simply can't raise taxes as a city council anywhere near at the rate that taxes or fees or any kind of revenue that we have at a rate that will allow us to meet the inflation levels that are currently going on. So when we look out at the operating budget, I think we need to see, wait a minute, how much money do we have available? How much do we need to commit to just compensation increases? And we need to figure out how we cover that before we have any conversation about buying $85,000 vehicles that are then going to sit in a driveway, which I don't fully understand that. Now, maybe there's a whole argument there about how we deploy officers. I don't fully understand that. There's sort of some statements and some bullet points, but I don't see any analysis behind that. But I would say, if we're going to spend a significant amount of money on trying to increase employee satisfaction in our police force, increase retention, my question is, wouldn't that money be better spent raising their pay, giving them stay bonuses, giving them retention bonuses, just increasing their overall pay level? I think you find that that will have a much bigger impact than just giving them a take-home vehicle, but keeping their compensation level much lower. So I'd like to see sort of a comparison solely focusing on this vehicle program, take-home program notion, and then comparing that to the alternative ways that we could spend a similar amount of money, and being sure that that in fact would be the best way to spend the money to increase employee morale. And I definitely am opposed to increasing our police budget to hire maintenance engineers when we instead could hire more officers. So those are the key points I think that I wanted to make. I think we should reject this bill tonight. We should get the vehicle replacement fund allocation process fixed, get the police department getting charged an appropriate amount for their vehicles, not overcharged as they are today. And then I think we need a more in-depth analysis and comparison of alternatives for this notion of take-home vehicle.
Councilor Howland?
I did.
I'll leave for you.
Okay.
Councilor Benson?
I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew's comments about leasing. I've always hated leasing myself and avoided it like the plague. But it's from what I've heard on the Public Safety Committee and having discussions with Officer Smith and Chief Phipps on this, it seems like there are real benefits to this. Owning the vehicles tends to give us a longer time with the vehicle, but the added years are sort of like, you know, the octogenarian years where you have all the, hip replacements and all that kind of, they're not the good years. But the chief savings here that I don't know if it really shows up on these tables is a retention of officers. We already know that we've lost officers because we don't have a take-home vehicle program. That's been testified by Officer Smith, by Chief Phipps, that we've lost potential hires because we don't have a vehicle take-home program. And if we lose an officer and have to hire a new one, you heard how much that costs. We only have to do that once a year, and we've taken it so completely in the teeth that any savings we might have gotten by purchasing vehicles is gone. And as far as parking them in driveways, well, you know, I mean, you don't drive the vehicles all the time. They got to park somewhere, and if they're at an officer's home, his response time is much quicker. He can, and we have time saved on every regular shift. As many as 20 to 40 minutes saved just because he has the vehicle at home. That's an enormous savings and an enormous increase in the effective patrol of our police officers. So I totally get the skepticism about leasing vehicles. And I will also say, in defense of what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew, I don't think any of these lease vehicles are going to make it 4 years. I don't think there's any chance that these vehicles are driven less than 19,000 miles a year. So I think we're going to hit 75,000 miles before 4 years is up every time. Nonetheless, it sounds like in the opportunity cost of, you know, losing officers or not being able to hire them, that cost is going to be way more than what we lose by leasing, in my opinion, from what I've heard.
Councilor Christensen.
Even misconduct and police not vaccinated.
You can be quiet, or you will need to leave.
No problem.
All right, so I just wanted to take a moment to just highlight, I know that we spoke about it at the beginning and during the presentation. Our police officers are incredibly overworked right now. Chief Phipps has been working very hard to fill the positions. And while I know that it's been our policy in the past to make sure that we're paying our police force more than what the neighboring jurisdictions are paying, the fact of the matter is we still can't get the folks in that we need and keep the ones that we want to keep. As Officer Smith has pointed out, 74% of the neighboring jurisdictions are offering a police car. Now, we're in a situation where there is very little housing that's in our valley, that's in Snoqualmie and North Bend, that's affordable for folks to live in. So we need to figure out how we're going to be able to attract the talent and keep the talent that we want. The police department has told us time and time again that this is very important to them. In public safety, we did ask whether retention bonuses or things of that nature would be more important than offering the police car program. And we were told that no, this is very, very important to our police department. I mean, it's every time we lose an officer, we have to go out, we have to find someone new. It's going to cost $150,000 to get a police officer in. Once they're in, assuming they don't have to go through training as a new officer, they're still going to be with a field training officer sitting in a car with someone else for weeks and weeks trying to learn our community. And the institutional knowledge that's lost every time we lose an officer is a really big hit to keep having in our community. To the extent that we need to work on the numbers or further refine the program, then I think that's something that we can talk about. But I think we need to give Chief Phipps and our department the resources that they need to fill the positions and to keep our people happy.
Councilor Holloway.
The cop cars are running out there.
Carolyn Lux, please respect the form of the committee.
No, you're wasting my
No,
gas
well, I'm
money.
not
Why
wasting
are
your
the
time.
cop
You can leave
cars
when you
running
want.
with nobody in them?
Okay. One, I hear the concerns of lease versus buy, and tell you the truth, I really think you confabulated this into, we ought to separate it out. So I make a motion to remove lease out of this agenda bill, and that we just focus on take-home cars, yes or no. May I have a second lease on that, and take the lease buy matter into F&A where we can do the analysis on that. And have your day in court, in essence, of why is it a good thing?
Second. There's a motion to remove the lease by option, but just talk about the take-home cards.
Just talk about take-home cars.
So it's been motioned and second. Holly, second by Councilor Christensen.
Yeah, I was gonna add on that. Yeah, go ahead, I have a motion, so go ahead and add on the motion.
Well,
There's two other ones to
and
come.
go into discussion on that, if that's all right.
Okay.
All right. So I think I agree with that. I think where we're falling into, the issue here is combining two elements. We're combining a lease program with take-home vehicles. And I think going with, let's just start with the take-home vehicles. And we can look at the cost of that. We can look at the share with North Bend. And then we can look at how we resolve the vehicle replacement program to allow that to continue to happen long term. What it does is it puts vehicles in the hands of the officers now that we currently have. It allows us to then fix the lease, the equipment replacement program, struggling with those words, replace that with, or modify it in a way that allows it to continue with the officers having the vehicles at home. And then we can continue buying vehicles, as Mayor Pro Tem says, at no lease cost and no interest charge and get that result. So I think, ultimately what we're going to do here, what I fear is we're going to do is we're going to motion that. We're going to approve that. We're going to turn down the entire agenda bill. Would start from that position going forward, because I don't know how you resolve the agenda bill is, a motion has to be specific. It needs to be, this is what we're changing. So I'm in favor of us continuing to discuss that, but and ultimately, but I think we got to look at the big dinosaur.
We need two more motions.
And well, we can't move on to the other motions unless we resolve this one first. So
We're going to make all three of them.
you can't do them all three at the same time. You got to do one at a time. Two Robert's rules. Robert's rules.
Do you have an officer to, sorry, comment?
I'm not asking for comment.
Okay, what is your,
I'm talking to the council without we're cast discussion.
okay, but that's, I have four. So you need to be noticed. So, I know there's discussion, Councilor Holloway.
Couple more. One, this is,
So we do have Mayor Pro Tem that probably wants to address this particular motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to address the lease versus buy going definite?
I do. So I like this path. I think it allows us to also address something that Councilmember Benson raised a little bit earlier, which is a concern about vehicle, the length of time that we have vehicles. Look, if we're holding vehicles, police vehicles in the fleet too long, and I think Councilmember Benson's right, I think we are. If that's happening, I don't think we fix it by going and paying some other company a bunch of profits to come in and yank the vehicles out every 4 years. I think we fix it by having a vehicle replacement program that says we're going to replace these vehicles at a certain mileage level or a certain age. We can do that with our own purchased vehicles. We don't have to give away profits to a leasing company to accomplish that. So I think that's part of looking at how what is the way we're administering this ER&R program, this vehicle replacement program, so we can address that. But to the point of separating these two things, I think that's absolutely the right way to go on this. There are sort of these questions of, well, to me, there's two separate questions. One is, what's the financial, what's the best financial way to finance our vehicles? Whatever those vehicles are, what's the best way to finance those? That's a separate discussion from how we then use those vehicles. And by the way, a vehicle can be used pretty much all day. I think that's what a lot of our vehicles happen. The next shift comes in and takes the vehicle back out. But I'm not saying that's a good idea or bad idea right now. I'm just saying how we use vehicles is a separate matter from how we finance their acquisition and how long we hold them. So let's separate that. Then there's this question of retaining police officers. Everyone on this council, I know, is very concerned with that topic. So sort of arguing, hey, we need to retain officers. That's preaching to the choir. We all get that. The question I'm raising is, have we picked the wisest way to do that? And, have we really gone to the police officers and said, hey, if we raise your pay from 50% of average police officers in our area to a much higher percentage, is that gonna make a difference? So when we spend 400,000, that's multiple police officer positions we cannot afford. So anyway, let's separate these two topics. The only issue I have is with the agenda bill that's in front of us, I have no idea what this motion actually entails. I don't know what would be left of this agenda bill to vote on, or what would be taken out or taken in. So my point of view would be, I'll vote for this amendment, but I still can't vote for the whole. I don't think I'm gonna understand what I'm voting for. So I'd rather say, let's send this back, separate these two issues, send the vehicle leasing concept to F&A, and then come back with a clean bill that's just addressing this take-home program, maybe address some of the concerns that are being raised and just some of the alternatives for use of that money. And let's, in 2 weeks, let's take that up and make a decision on that separate from any leasing questions.
Councilor Holloway?
All right, so I'll throw all my cards on that. Violate the dinosaurs and talk to the large dinosaur. I believe the 6-year term for the agenda bill was discussion in relationship to how long to replace the vehicles, get them with lease or lease periods, for the considerations for that. I have issued.
Point of order.
State your point.
We can't discuss an additional motion without resolving what we're currently in, which I believe is removing the lease program.
I also hear we can't move forward on that item alone, so I'd like to.
Point of orders to the mayor.
Okay, well, we need to complete this motion. Are you speaking to your motion?
I'm trying to make clarification of the context of the motion so that it makes sense and can move together as a package, so I can speak to the other intent.
Well,
or we can try to vote on this without context.
So, as I said, the motion was to remove the lease and buy options. It is just to approve the take-home cars. Is that correct? And then
The small dinosaur motion is to remove the lease option from this agenda.
the lease and the purchase option.
Our standard practice right now is we purchase. And we go through ERR.
What was the motion you captured?
I have removed the lease buy option from the discussions and the lease buy option back to F&A and discuss selling the police take-home car concept.
Except for that last
So
sentence.
that
So
was
just
included in it. That's
remove the lease buy discussion from this.
That was the motion.
right. It was the motion that you read back.
What was
So
that
read it
last
again.
sentence you read?
Remove the lease buy option from the discussion, send the lease buy option back to F&A and discuss only the police take-home car concept.
Okay, I'm sorry, I agree. All right, I will hold further conversation till we kill this dinosaur.
So do we have any more discussion on this particular motion? Councilor Vincent?
A point of order, can we ask for comment from the person who presented this idea in the first place before we vote on this motion? Is that something that we're allowed to do?
Yes, we can. Officer Smith?
Thank you. I just have a couple comments I want to make. So as far as the importance of this to the police department, I can tell you that it was our number one want in contract negotiations because I'm the union president and I was there for every single negotiation and I spoke to all the members and this was our number one want. While I think it's great that this topic has come up about an increase in pay, that's not something that's going to be long-term. With this take-home vehicle program, this is something that we can help build at this department, which is going to make this a desirable place. It's a beautiful place to work. It's a great community, but if it was such a desirable place, it wouldn't have 8 vacancies on patrol out of 20 people.
Point of order, Mayor. Point of order. We should not be in a debate with staff. Staff can provide answers to questions, but should not be debating the council.
Just making some comments.
He's just making some comments.
He's debating the council.
Actually, we invited him to make comments when, just going to finish it up, Officer Smith.
Yeah, I guess that's just, I wanted to stress to you all just the importance of this. This is something that we've wanted for years. I really think it's gonna make a difference in our hiring and staffing, which we deeply need. So, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew?
Yeah, just, I've been on council for 5 years. This hasn't been something that they've asked for in prior years, so I don't know what to say. But in any way, the key thing here is, let's figure out what is the best way to retain our officers. And if this turns out to be it, then that's the path we go, all the way to figure out how in God's green earth we're going to afford it. My question is, can we put on the screen the revised motion that we're being asked to vote on? Because I'm not clear what's being stripped out and what's being left.
Yes, we will.
Please vote no.
Okay, so remove the lease by option from the discussion. Send the lease by option back to F&A and discuss only lease take-home car concept.
Right, so I'm asking, what is the remaining thing that we're going to be asked to vote on after this? What's being stricken or added? I don't see what the remaining item would look like.
Would be approving of Councilmember Holland, you're the one that.
Clarify the motion then. Move the lease by option from the discussion and the lease by option to go to F&A and discuss only please take home concept based on the current car purchase practice through ER&R.
Sorry, I understand what's on the screen. What I don't understand is what the remaining thing is to vote on.
Was that what Councilor Christensen understood when she seconded the motion?
Councilor Christensen?
In order to get it heard, yes.
I'm not, I don't have any,
It's not a debate.
I got no dog in the fight. I'm just asking if what Council Member Holloway just said was what you understood when you seconded the motion.
So I'm not, you didn't talk about ERR. We're just approving, well, discuss only please take home car concept.
Point, if you take the lease out, the only thing, I'm only clarifying that the only thing that is left is purchased through ER&R.
Oh, then we have lease by option. So is that the buy?
So you throw the lease out, the buy is, I would assume through ER&R for current city practice.
So you remove the lease by option.
There's a lease option and there's a buy option.
Right. Look at the current motion that you
Those
made.
are two separate things. I removed lease, that leaves buy through ER&R current city practice.
This is what you stated, and that's what was seconded.
I'm sorry, my thing was to remove the lease. Well, in essence, yes, it removes the lease option from this discussion. You may clarify that and strike the buy. And I think Councilman Christian.
Point of order. Point of order.
State point.
I believe the only way to do what Councilmember Holloway is suggesting is for him to remove his motion and then to withdraw his motion and then make a new motion. I don't think that we can go back and edit a motion that was already seconded. Does that make sense?
Point of order.
Okay,
Go ahead.
no discussion.
Point of orders are non-debatable. The mayor must rule on the
That is
point of
true.
order.
So we can withdraw the motion in a second, or we can continue talking about this particular motion. This is the motion. So we need to determine what we're going to do.
It's your decision here. The point of order's been made.
The order's been made. So it's up to,
I withdraw motion. I'm done.
okay, so the motion has been withdrawn. So are you going to submit a new motion or are we back to the original motion?
My guys, I'm willing to work through this and not muddle around with it. I will remake the motion. We remove the lease option referring to FNA. Period. Let's remove the lease option, refer to FNA. Consider the proposal under standard practice for purchase of vehicles.
Second. So it's moved and second.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt this just for a moment because I want to make sure I capture this correctly in the record. So at the end, you said, consider the proposal under standard practice.
Under standard vehicle purchase practice of the city.
There was a second. So it's moved by Councilor Holloway, second by Councilor Christensen. Remove the lease option, refer to FNA, and consider the proposal under standard vehicle purchase practice of the city. Any discussion? Councilor Ruby.
So I think I'm starting to follow where you're going with this, and I wanted you to have a chance to get to the other ones. So I'm going to support this. I still would like to know how that affects the entire thing. Go ahead. But I'm not sure how it goes.
Not make motions until all parts of the table.
Councilor Vincent?
Is it okay to ask Officer Smith another question before we go on?
State your question.
Do you care how we get these vehicles?
Great question.
No. Thank you.
Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, considering that this basically says refer this agenda bill to FNA, I am in support of that.
Councilor Holloway?
I won't use point of clarification, Mr. Mayhew will tell me that's not a valid point. But clarification, this does not remove the agenda bill for consideration of take-home cars. It merely makes it that the lease option is off the table, and if there are additional equipment to be purchased, they will be purchased to our standard practices. So the option for take-home cars is the big dinosaur still on the table.
Point of order.
State your point.
I actually, you know what? I'm sorry. It's not a point of order. It's just a question. It's just a question. My understanding was that the lease option, the lease buying, all that was going to go back to FNA for analysis. Not that anything was automatically decided with regard to leasing and buying, but rather that FNA was going to look at the cost analysis of that before we decided on how the vehicles would be procured. Was I misunderstanding that?
Can we put the motion up? If you wish to make motion for clarification on a sub motion for clarification to the motion, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I understood the motion. So it looks like the motion is saying that the lease option is off the table. It's going to go to FNA on how we'll go about procuring the vehicles, but that the lease option is off the table. Stop pointing, just tell me what you mean.
The last portion of it, proposal, consider it the proposal. This is the
Under the standard vehicle purchase practice. Thank you. Thank you for speaking slowly.
I know.
So
I'm pointing to it, it's straight half a mile away.
So take-home cars are, So this is removing lease option, referring to F&A. So we're still considering the original motion, but just looking at the purchase, based on purchase practice of the city. Right. Okay. Councilor Johnson?
If that's the case, then I don't know what the agenda bill is that would be left as the big dinosaur were this to move forward. I mean, it seemed to me that the two where the way that the agenda bill was written were kind of linked. The whole process for leasing the vehicles and how that was going to help pay for the take home. It didn't cover everything, but it was going to be related to how we were going to fund the take home vehicles. So I'm just left not really sure what the big dinosaur would be.
The big dinosaur, so the proposed action is to move to approve lease take home car and vehicle lease program. So this motion would remove the lease option, refer it to F&A, and consider this proposal using the standard vehicle purchase practice of the city. So it still has please take home cars on the table with purchase option that the true cost can be evaluated at F&A. So tonight you're basically deciding if you're going to approve take home cars, and then you're going to figure out for F&A how you're going to fund it. Is that correct? State head nods. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew?
Yeah, so are we gonna vote on this little dinosaur or where are we at?
Yes, we will vote on the little dinosaur. We're complete with discussion on the little dinosaur. Councilor Holloway?
Call the question.
Okay, we have called the question. So there's a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been seconded to call the question. Any discussion?
No discussion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Okay, the question has been called, so we are approved. So we will go ahead and vote on the motion in front of us, which is remove the lease option, refer to F&A committee, and consider the proposal under standard vehicle purchase practice of the city. All those in favor say
Point of
aye.
order, point of order, point of order.
What is your point?
What, I don't understand. We just voted on the little dinosaur. I don't know what we're voting on.
Vote on call the question.
We voted on call the question.
Thank you, Mayor.
And
Thank
now
you,
we're voting on this motion that I just read.
thank you.
So all those in favor of the motion that I just read?
Aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Okay, it is unanimous. For the motion to remove the lease option, refer to F&A committee and consider the proposal under the standard vehicle purchase practice of the city. Councilor Holloway?
Other issues I have with this. One, what has been passed intent of council to actually keep the police salary and benefits north of average, and that should remain. If by chance we have not considered this benefit into that model, it should get into that model. But it should be done in context of contract negotiations. When is our current contract over? 2 years?
Over 2023.
In 2023. All right. I will make a subsequent motion modifying the duration of the particular agenda bill to end at year-end 2023, so that we can get then this back into contract negotiations. I have issues with you telling me that this was the first concern because you guys took it off the table. If it was first concern, you would have left it on the table, okay? But let's get it into that discussion so that we can look at the entire package, okay?
What is the motion?
I haven't made a motion. I'm making that mistake. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna do it. My other concern is, we're into the do you like cake conversation. And usually the answer is yes, but will you pay $10 or trade your firstborn for it? The answer is no. That's the funding question here. So, I have something question before I move to discuss further. if you were to execute this in the next 2 years, would you need additional vehicles? There were at least four vehicles stated. How many of those would you need?
If the option is to purchase the vehicle, you're gonna have to purchase the vehicle for every officer eventually to fully staff. And therefore, we're talking at probably 20 at this point.
Okay. So my subsequent would be from that, as part of officer recruitment and retention, given the current circumstances, I would regretfully propose that this be funded out of ARPA. So that we at least have a funding source identified. It's not the best use for these funds. I'd rather focus on trying to increase revenue and reduce expenses, but motion one is to remove the duration of this agenda bill from 6 years to end at the end of 2023, coincidental with new police contract. May I have a second?
Second.
So it's moved by Councilor Holloway and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew to, please read back the motion.
To change the duration of.
I have removed the duration of the agenda bill from 6 years to end at the end of 2023, coincidental with the SPA contract. Snoqualmie Police Association contract.
Is that correct? Councilor Mayhew.
Could that be reread? Could that be reread? Because yeah, could that be reread, please?
Bring it up.
We will put it on the screen for you. So remove the duration of this agenda bill from 6 years to end at the end of 2023, coinciding with the SPA contract.
I'll go with coinciding. Either is fine.
Seconded by, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew. Okay. Any discussion on this? That's what I'm saying.
Treading Holloway water here. I have a question for the chief, if you may permit me. The statement was made that I think I understood it as we would have, in order to do the take-home vehicle program, we would have to buy 20 vehicles.
Up to 20 vehicles.
So you're saying that
Every officer would have a take-home vehicle if we're purchasing them. That's the goal for the lease as well. That's the goal.
let me rephrase that. Under the previous proposal before the police was stricken, it indicated that senior members of the department would have priority and then grow over time.
Right.
Could you operate this program under the current vehicles we have without purchase until that was determined at a later date?
You know, I think that we could. Ultimately, the goal here is to get.
The goal is to get you take-home vehicles.
So if it's
That's
to a point, and I want to just say that I appreciate your discussion. I mean, the time and effort you have put into it shows us that you care as much as we do about this issue. And I wanted to just say that, but it doesn't matter how we get there. My goal is to staff this community with officers. We're having a difficult time right now, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, like I said earlier. But what this does is it increases that umbrella of our influence of being able to get candidates. I think we all know that. How do we go about getting that? If we only start out the first year with 2 cars, then that's what we start out with. I just want to get there. I want these officers to know that we're going to get there at some point. So I appreciate it.
Councilor Mayhew.
Well, I find the chief's comments very helpful, and maybe that's a path through. I was going to say that I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that we just went through a police union negotiation. We said that if they would forego their pay increase, we would look at this vehicle program. They chose the pay increase. Secondly, we should not be negotiating with the police union in which they go through the negotiations with the city administration and then come to council and try to reopen those negotiations. This is no way to negotiate with our staff. I'm very confused now because of the presentation that we have. I don't feel like I understand what's being proposed, what the cost of what's being proposed is. Is it 20 vehicles? Is it 2 vehicles? Is it, you know, someone, if they've got seniority or not senior? I just don't see this. I can do the math of 20 cars at $100,000 a car. I know that adds up to $2 million. And I'm pretty sure that if we gave the chief $2 million to spend on hiring more officers, that would make a heck of a difference. And I bet he might not choose vehicles as the first method, but as he just said, he might include that in the mix. So what I'd really like to see here is something with a price tag that we can afford. And it's really hard to know what we can afford when we're just about to go into the operating budget budgeting process for the next 2 years. So I just feel like I don't understand the cost of what's being proposed here. Are there ways to limit this cost? Is there a way to do what the chief just said, which is move in a direction at a cost we can afford as we sort of figure out with the operating budget and what that's going to happen in the next union contract negotiation, what's going on with inflation? Can we do something? And I particularly like what Councilmember Holloway said, which is, you know, part of what's going on here has to do with ARPA impacts, and maybe we use some of the ARPA funds to fund what we're doing, but can we perhaps do, and to go back in time, there was some discussion about doing this on a pilot program basis. So my thought would be, can we just have something brought back to us that's clean, that says, you know, look, we want to do 20 vehicles and we want to buy them in the next 3 months, or we want to do this with 2 vehicles to start, or here's an option, 2 vehicles, 10 vehicles, and 20 vehicles. Or can we have something where we can really zero in and make some smart decisions financially that try to achieve what the chief just said, which I think we all share, which is we've got to retain our existing police force and attract officers to fill our vacant position. But I just don't see, with what's left in this bill, I can't see the cost. And so I want to vote for something that supports what the chief's doing, which I think we all share that objective. But what's left here tonight to vote on, I just can't figure it out. I can't find a way to vote for it, even though I'd like to see something I could vote for. So I'm going to end up voting no on this overall. I'll vote yes for this amendment that's being proposed, but I just, right now, I'm confused. I can't see a good choice yet.
Did you have some insight into some of the costs of the?
So as a part of our financial analysis memo, we wanted to address at the beginning, oh, sorry, my apologies, to address how many vehicles we could eventually purchase as a part of any sort of program. And so right now, the police department is currently starting with a fleet of 14 vehicles. As Officer Smith has proposed, currently we've got 13 patrol officers, including 4 new hires that should start or graduate from the academy in the next 6 months, 4 sergeants, 1 detective, and 1 school resource officer. In essence, our goal would be, based on the FTEs that we're going to have, hopefully relatively soon, that we would essentially ramp up to about 20 vehicles, I believe, over the next 1 to 2 years or so. There is the potential chance, because we have 29 authorized FTEs, that we may need to purchase up to 26 vehicles in total, which is 12 additional to the 14 that we currently have right now. And so with that said, if you think that a police vehicle is roughly $80,000 or so, $80,000 times the 6 in order that we would need in order to get to about 20 vehicles total would equal about $500,000. And so with that said, questions?
Councilor
Point of
Howard?
clarification, how much is this North Bend and how much is this small?
That is a fantastic question.
Thank you. Good points.
Right. I don't exactly have a vehicle breakdown between both, but I believe more would be funded through North Bend than it would be Snoqualmie.
Councilor Johnson? Thank you.
Not knowing exactly how this would be funded, I'm not sure that I can support the whole thing. And with regard to the little dinosaur that's on the table, I have the concern that if we have a program for a short time where officers are taking home vehicles and then we would suddenly take that away from them, I don't see that happening. So this becomes an ongoing program where I'm definitely not comfortable with paying for it with one-time revenue sources. This would have to come from something that is an ongoing revenue source to cover what I see as being if this were to go into effect in the short term, I see it very difficult to not become a long-term program. And if this is so important to the officers, then and it is by far the most important thing, and we're losing officers because of it, not because of their rate of pay, then perhaps we could look at funding it out of offsets in pay.
Okay. Any other discussion on this motion? You put the motion back up. Okay, we're ready to vote. So motion on the table is remove the duration of this agenda bill from 6 years to end at the end of 2023, coinciding with the SPA contract. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Mayor Pro Tem, did you vote?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I had the mute on. I voted aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. So this motion passes.
Yeah, I got you halfway there.
Councilor Lissay?
Sorry.
I think what Councilor Holiday was just saying is lead in the water, you can't let it drink. This discussion is all of it, and I hope officers understand this and the chief understand this. This has been all about getting you what you need to attract and retain your officers. I think the only way this gets resolved in the way that other council members mentioned is to refer it to committee. I believe FNA is probably the correct committee to start in to understand the budgetary items, and then they can push it to public safety to rectify the actual take-home car policy. So I will move to refer to FNA committee for further discussion.
Second.
So it was moved and second to refer to FNA committee for further discussion. Councilor Holloway?
Just because I don't want these things to drag out, can we entertain the combined FNA and public safety meeting first part of the FNA agenda Tuesday next week? Or Wednesday next week is probably a shift to the holiday. So I make amendment to your motion.
I think that's something that the amend, just make that decision. Committee of the whole meeting. Invite both committees. Sorry, I spoke over.
Is there any objection to a combined FNA public safety meeting next Wednesday at 6:30 per the schedule of FNA?
At the beginning of it?
Yeah.
That's up to
Point of information, would a combined committee therefore be 6 council members? Isn't that just a council meeting?
That's some overlap.
Yeah. So 5, so we'll notice it as committee of the whole.
I don't want to speak for Drew and for the finance folks, but based on the second motion which you passed this evening, there's some pretty significant additional financial analysis that's going to have to be done. So all I'll say is we will attempt to have that for your meeting next week. But we want to make sure we get this right.
I was just gonna say something.
Councilor Say.
Sorry, yeah, I was gonna say, it probably is gonna take that discussion and figure out what direction to go, and then it may not come out of committee until another council meeting later. But the goal is still to get the same.
Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew.
Yeah, so I just want to say I'm in favor of this motion because it is my sense of the council that we have a strong desire to support the hiring and retention of police officers. And so I just want to be clear, both to Chief Phipps and to officer, I'm sorry, the officer who's been presenting to us, what was his name? Smith, Officer Smith. I just want to emphasize to them that I at least observe the council having a strong inclination, which I sense to be a clear majority that wants to support the attraction and retention of police officers. The question that we're trying to struggle with, or certainly that I am trying to struggle with, and is behind how I will vote, is I want to do something that is something we can afford. There's 2 aspects to that: affording the purchase of the vehicle in the first place, which I think we can absolutely come up with. Secondly is focusing then the charges out to the police department for the use of those vehicles, which therefore is an increased hit to their budget, therefore reduces the amount they can spend on pay for officers and reduces the amount they can spend on hiring additional officers. So it's about, number one, what can we afford to do? And let's not do something we just can't afford or is a poor use of money considering alternatives. And number 2, is this really the sole thing we want to spend whatever that money is on to get that outcome? Or is there some mix of things? Maybe we want to do some police vehicles. Maybe we don't want to do police vehicles at all. Maybe we want to do some retention bonuses. Maybe we don't want to do retention bonuses at all. But let's just have a good look at how we achieve what I think is a common goal, and do it in a financially sustainable, responsible way. So that's why I'm going to vote for this, not trying to kill this motion, but trying to get it into a place where we've addressed those concerns.
Any other comments? Okay, so yes, Judge. So the motion is to refer to F&A, the committee, for further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, it's unanimous, so this will be referred to F&A for further discussion. The officers. Well, do we still have the main motion?
No, that pushes the main motion is pushed off with the refer to committee.
How does it get pushed off but be referred to the committee?
Because it's higher on the list, it's dead in council, and it goes to committee. It's a higher priority refer to committee is a higher priority motion than the motion that's on the table. So it happens first, and then it can be amended in committee and brought back to council.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. I'm gonna try to vote on the other motion. Sorry to withdraw the original motion.
We don't need to.
Okay, so anyway, thank you, Officer Chase, for the presentation, and Chief Phipps, and everyone. Thank you very much. Really nice.
Well, we are clipping through this agenda.
Moving on to,
2.5 more hours to go through.
so is there any other comments for Community Development Committee?
Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew has his hand up.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and fellow council members. I apologize. It is actually 5 a.m. where I am, and I need to drop off the call and get some sleep. So I hope you'll excuse me from the remainder of the meeting. And I need to leave.
Quitter.
So Agenda Bill 22-083, 6-year transportation improvement program for the period 2023 through
No report from committee.
2028.
Just to
Thank
confirm.
you. So we held a public hearing for this item earlier. And Councilmember Holloway, would you please read the summary and motion?
This bill presents the city's 6-year transportation improvement plan STIP for the period of 2023 through 2028. The 6-year plan is updated annually following public hearing. Council approval, the STIP will be submitted to WashDOT on June 30th. Proposed action, move to adopt resolution number 1617, adopting 6-year transportation improvement program for the period of 2023 through 2028 and authorize the mayor to sign. May I have a second?
Seconded.
Moved by Councilor Holloway, seconded by Councilor Benson. Is there any public comment on this item? We already held in public hearing earlier, so is there public comment regarding this item? Not seeing anyone in the chambers or anyone in the attendees. All right. So Councilor, is there any discussion? Councilor Lusay?
I have to ask one question. Every year for as long as I remember, the number one item on this list was the interchange at Highway 18 and I-90. That has not been built yet. That has not been started yet. You know how that stuff goes. I would like to hear why it's been removed.
If we can bring up the list, the I-90 interchange replacement is on the list. Design construction is
Where?
it's number 9. It may have gone down.
Highway 99, I see. Oh, buried down there. All right, I guess it's on there. So, and fast, I'm sorry,
Okay. That's all.
that part's solved.
Okay.
One additional comment, just for newer council members. Ignore the ratings. The ratings are there just from a standpoint of staff recommendations and for helping us. What we found out in the past is as long as it's on the list, it gets considered. So it's things that are, if it's not on the list, that's where we run into problems. So that's why I brought that up. So just to let you know, that's how it's been in the past. So.
Councilor Holloway.
Typically the ratings important, but I'm not going to argue the point. If we can go to number 11, roundabout at Meadowbrook Way, 384th, southeast North Bend Way. This is an item that was on prior list and was therefore brought forward. I'm not sure how long ago it was on the prior list, but this particular intersection is outside of the city. I don't know that we have overarching concerns. That intersection in particular that we would want to voice external territory, the fancy word for it, I can't remember what it is, but external territory opinions on that intersection, unless somebody can advise me such the tribe has come by and asked for our assistance or the county. My motion would be to remove, is to remove that particular item from the list and renumber accordingly.
So there's a motion. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of second.
That's the way it works.
All right. Any more discussion? Councilor Lassie?
Just want to add that there are other items that are outside of the, some only minutes like that, and meter change replacement. And they're really intended to be items that are important to the city, in both our immediate vicinity, inside our boundaries, and
Just don't know that they intersect- things at that intersection.
Councilor Howland?
Shutting up motion was not second.
My understanding when we discussed it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that there's nothing really to be gained by taking them off of the STIP. And that sometimes we put things that are not necessarily within our city to show that we have an interest in that area or a project. Is that, am I remembering that right?
You are.
Okay. Okay.
Any other discussion or comments?
I'm refraining from debate.
All right. Okay, so we will move to approve the motion, which is approval of Agenda Bill 22-083, the 6-year transportation improvement program for period 2023 through 2028. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
Sorry, I was an aye. I was just slow on the mute button.
Thank you. Is there any further comments for Parks and Public Works?
No further report.
Any report for F&A committee?
No report.
Right, so next committee as a whole, the Agenda Bill 22-097 revised 2023 to 2024 biennial budget development calendar. This is a minor change on this calendar. During F&A, we had financial management policy discussion, and there's a further information that our Route and interim finance director Jen Ferguson is putting together, and so we moved financial management policy scheduled for June 27th to July 11th council meeting. Is there any other additional change to
I'll
that?
just say it's wonderful to be back in front of you this evening for the most part. So we have a jam-packed budget calendar for you, as you can see here. We discussed at the F&A committee, basically creating a change document that would compare the proposed financial management policy to the previously adopted policy, as well as describe the impact the proposed policy would have on the current 2021-2022 budget. And so because this is going to take work from your staff, for the most part, our action as a part of this agenda bill is to delete the review that was scheduled for today in front of the full council regarding the financial management policy and attempting to bring that back on July the 11th. We may have to come back with a further revision to the calendar, so it should certainly be fun given what the discussion that we just had regarding the previous agenda bill or one of the previous agenda bills. So thank you very much, and that's what we have in front of you.
Thank you.
Keep coming.
Is there any public comment regarding this item? Seeing none. Do you have any comments? Any discussion? All right, moving on to vote. All those in approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Opposed, nay. That's the first. Who read the motion? No, you just read it somewhere.
Move to approve the revised 2023-2024 biennial budget development calendar.
Second.
There we go. Thank you.
Aye.
All right.
Did we just vote on nothing before that?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to
And only
make sure
one
that I
person voted on my
wasn't just in a
motion.
coma.
Silence
Is
means
it's on?
The heat's on. Okay,
Heat's on.
so Mayor's report, I will move on to anything further from, no, not committee of the whole, so we're done. Moving on to Mayor's report. Okay, so a couple things. I was appointed, the mayor myself was appointed to Regional Transit Committee, which reviews and makes recommendations to the King County Council on policies for public transportation services operated by King County Metro. So this furthers my work on Snoqualmie Valley Government Association Transportation Committee, where we are addressing transit needs in the valley. So the first action was to recommend adopting the zero youth fare policy for youth 18 and under. And this is funded through Move Ahead Washington and is in line with the Metro Strategic Plan goals. So this was approved for this committee and then is moving on eventually to King County Council for a vote. Last week, we interviewed candidates for the community director and finance director positions. I'd like to thank Councilmember Say and Councilmember Holloway for participating in the interviews, and there'll be more information coming regarding these positions. At our next council meeting, July 11th, we will review financial policies and the 2023 to 2028 CIP. And so please be sure, I think you've received the financial policies, the new ones and the old ones, review that. There's further analysis that's coming to be provided to you. But the CIP is also being reviewed during Parks and Public Works meetings. And so if you have any questions regarding anything on policies or CIP, I will encourage you to reach out to our staff. So we're hoping to have approval for both of these on July 25th. And that is it. So do we have any, are there any liaison reports this evening? Seeing none? Gosh. Right. So next meeting of the city council is July 11th, 2022. So there being no further business to come before council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Vincent and second by Councilor Say. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:31 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Long evening. Appreciate everyone.